Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is 6:30, and we are going to start off with a hearing appearance before the board with the Historical Commission with a presentation on the archaeology accountability policy. Okay. Come on up.
What a difference that makes to have
Been shut off?
Then it starts to get freezing.
I know. I wore vents.
My name is John Nove. I know most of you, but I'm the chair of the Historical Commission. I've been on the Historical Commission for 3 years or so now and became chair back in October. What I'm hoping to do is I put together just 3 paragraphs by way of introduction, which I would like to read, so I won't ramble on and on.
I
promise.
No, go ahead.
And then I also have some show and tell, including some fast-breaking information, which I think might be interesting to everyone. Good. Put on my other. This is cozy. I didn't know how you would do this.
Oh, we prefer this every time we get a chance.
So I have 2 committee members with me here, Betty Hollingsworth and the driver.
Pleased to meet you, David. Same here. I already know everyone else.
The archaeological accountability policy we're presenting to you tonight is primarily the work of Bud Driver, a founding member of the Commission, whom I think most of you know. When I took over as chair in October, I assumed the role of midwife in shaping the policy into its present form. Its contents were voted on and approved by the Commission last June. What we hope the policy will do is take a small step towards scrutinizing a standard operating procedure which has been in place in Deerfield for over 50 years, namely the excavation and removal of artifacts from our soil, primarily by institutional archaeologists, without any accountability to the town and its historical commission. No site reports, no inventory of objects removed, and more often than not, when the excavation is on private land, no post-excavation communication with or return of excavated artifacts to the private landowners on whose land they were removed, and whose right to ownership is established by state law. I say small step in that although institutions or the Mass Historical Commission are not required by law to give the town notification of pending archaeological excavations or to provide the town with the site reports generated by these projects, we feel that it would be a common courtesy for them to do so. We understand that while the reports are not considered public documents, the information they contain would nonetheless be useful to the Deerfield Historical Commission in responding to notifications of pending state and federal construction projects, as well as in the creation of a town-wide sensitivity map showing zones of cultural and historical importance, which could be applicable in the siting of future domestic, commercial, and municipal projects. What we're asking tonight is that you formally support the intent of what we're trying to do. And my 2 little pieces of show and tell are that, first of all, there are archaeologists who already do this. So here's a gentleman who worked in Deerfield, published this monograph on his site, and not only did this, but deposited all of his notes at PVMA. So there's the material. There's
A good steward.
A good steward. Yeah. And that's even for sale at the Millstone in Sunderland, which is where I got it.
And that's actually for Brad and Alan Sanderson's farm in Whately, you guys. So they're a model for sure, because the Sanderson family has not only allowed the private archaeologists to do this, they also have loaned their artifacts to other scientists from Canada, New York State. So the Sanderson, we should really give them a round of applause for being so kind and loaning their artifacts to other scientists.
You know, for our viewing audience, maybe you could just summarize your policy. because I have a couple questions. It's mostly to do with enforcement, or what our endorsement means or doesn't really mean, honestly. So
May I
why don't you explain it a little bit for everybody?
Good. May I throw out one other thing and then just be done with all my little...
Sure.
Good. So this came in the mail today here, and it's from EBI Consulting, who've been hired by AT&T, and AT&T wants to dig a ditch from one of the Pecumtuck Ridge Line towers.
Up behind, what's his name there, Camosa, down to the Route 5 and 10 butterfly shop.
Okay.
It's a pretty long trench, you guys.
And they're asking us to review whether this involves any sites that might, that there might be an impact on. And by not having access to the Mass Historical Commission data, it's hard for us to answer. I mean, we're lucky that we have Bud. But minus Bud with all his local knowledge, how could we make a reasonable,
Are they also following that with MHC? Is that
That's
the
what I
requirement?
don't know. So I put a call into the woman to be sure that they were. But I think there are certain circumstances where that gets deferred to the local historical commissions rather than
What's
involve
really nice
MHC.
about this, you guys, one, that they knew that they needed an archaeological survey, or at least someone who knows archaeology to be on a job site when they do the dig. If they do run into something, somebody can recognize it right away, and then they can work around that. But that we are an extension of the Massachusetts Historical Commission. We're an arm from them, so we're working in concert with MHC. We are as the DHC. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Great. So back to your question. Because of the way laws are written and what we can do, what we have the power to do, there's basically no enforcement
That's what I was.
built into this.
Yeah, I was.
So it's entirely, I mean, it's asking people to be good stewards.
I certainly
Yeah.
endorse this. I think it's important that you all adopt it as a commission. Which have you?
We did
done
that.
it?
We've already
Okay.
voted it.
So you are recommending to us to further endorse
What
your
we would
position?
like to do, Caroline, in the sense of the enforcement, which is more of a common courtesy, because we don't want to inhibit anybody from doing their archaeological digging. We just want to know what they're doing, what they're
Right.
digging, and at least give us photographs of what they're taking, so we have some sort of a record of the Native American past that was once here and what's happening in the course of 50 years worth of them removing the artifacts. We don't have any
No records.
record of the past Native Americans that once lived here, which is sad. And then when you ask them for it, and what's really odd about this whole thing is if you don't comb your hair a certain way, then they won't include you in accessing the knowledge. And I think that's why I was so adamant about creating something specifically for the town where no matter how they feel, we're still going to get at least a site report and an inventory list with photographs of the artifacts. It's better than nothing, is the way I looked at it.
And then hopefully we can also acquire data points for the sensitivity map, so that when we get a thing like this, we can say, oh, you're going right through.
Could you describe what a sensitivity map is?
Actually, it would be that map there almost, that Deerfield open space map, you guys. That would be an excellent map because it's all the public lands that are already protected. And a lot of the sites, the archaeological sites, are already on this map. But even though they're not labeled archaeological sites, like here's the railroad yard right here. Tim Nurse owns all this, Tim Nurse does, but DCR owns on both sides here. And it's one huge archaeological site. It's massive. And they did a survey in the year 2004. And, of course, I personally do have that site report, but it was because I was privileged, because I'm the one who brought them there to show them it, so that because it was being purchased from the railroad to become public land, it was important for them to know that it existed, the archaeological site was there. But all along the Connecticut River, you see, there's so many sites here, and along the Deerfield River, and above Route 5 and 10, along the escarpment above the railroad bed, the town of Deerfield has so many archaeological sites. If we somehow just use this type of a map without putting a pinpoint on the map, just say the contour lines of a certain elevation are sensitive to cultural materials. It just gives us, and the building inspector especially, a better idea of what's going on.
There are 8 or 9 other towns in Massachusetts who've done those sensitivity maps, and I've gotten in touch with them. I'm just going to find out how they've made them. And so far, I've only found one who may have gotten data back from Mass Historical Commission.
So, is it because it's worded? I mean, did we talk to a lawyer about this?
Years ago, and Bud has a letter, I have it
Yeah.
here, 2009, because at that point, the request was to put this on a town meeting warrant. So it was the letter addressed 2 issues, one of which they talked about
You
tonight.
can just read the yellow highlight. That's basically the 2 points that they're making.
Okay, so the state it supersedes us.
That's
And
her
it's not with-
opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not. We're not. This is not an illegal document or an act.
Right. No, it's the intention. But what I was wondering is, it's not enforceable because it's not written in a way that is enforceable. I mean, if you hear that somebody is digging and they haven't submitted a permit, can you?
The only
how
ones
do you do
that-
a cease and desist? I mean,
If the private landowner wishes to allow people onto their property, that's between the private landowner and the individuals they allow on their property. It has nothing to do with public lands. The laws that are on the books pertaining to archaeological matters are for public and federal lands or lands controlled by the Commonwealth. And those are the ones that we want to know about, because the private landowner and the private archaeologists are more than willing to share. It's the other way around that they're not willing to
Okay.
share.
I think I'm understanding. So it almost sounds like, so we have to work with the state, or get the state to work with us, right? I mean, that's
Correct. This should be a
Right.
cooperation,
okay.
a cooperative. And how we can do that is if we send the archaeological entities, which there's not very many that are state affiliated who need a state permit coming into Deerfield, if we just send them a letter with the town official letterhead on it requesting them to notify us of any archaeological digs in the future, that's all we're asking. And then someone from the Historical Commission can be on site or involved with the procedural process so that we're involved, either through getting a site report, an inventory list, or a seat. Everything's on digital now. It would just be a disc of the photographs of the actual artifacts.
I think I'm understanding it now. I was trying to figure out where the gap was, and it seems like it's
Really, Caroline and you guys, the only ones that we feel are digging artifacts are the professional people who know, and it's their job to do such things. It's not about a lone wolf running around rampant digging holes. We don't have that in the town of Deerfield. And I've been monitoring our archaeological sites in Deerfield since 1995, and I don't see that. When, in particular, UMass in the newspaper talks about looters and unscrupulous people, it's really a smokescreen to get permission to do the archaeological dig. That's what I have found, and I've studied it for 20 years now, and that's why I'm so adamant about us having some sort of an accountability, because the last 50 years we can't account for anything, and I think that's horrible.
What do you think, David?
Well, it's, obviously there's a major concern, it's because of the history of this area.
Yes.
It bothers me that the state doesn't communicate to us.
Well,
which
what's
is
really sad, you guys,
sometimes normal, but
I recently got a new site report, and it was on Indian cemeteries in Deerfield. I don't know if you know this, but we got like 15 Indian cemeteries with at least 30 bodies in them that I personally wasn't even aware of. That we should be aware of this. We could go to our cemeteries and we designate a fence around it, and that's our cemetery and blah blah blah. But we have nothing that clearly shows that scenario in Deerfield, and I don't know whether or not we want to, but I just want you to be aware of that. They were living here for 12,000 years when we've been living here for 350 years, you know? So there's a...
Yeah, it's, with new construction and stuff, you don't want to be disturbing burial grounds. It's an important part of history. It's, I can remember, when they started building Roll Tool and coming across that, I was a police officer at the time. We were guarding the burial ground, but the unfortunate part about that, they told us the wrong area to guard, but, that's immaterial. But it's...
and that's the other thing, too, David, that really wasn't a burial ground, so that was the fight about getting everybody involved.
Yeah, and it's... but I think it's important to try to get these people coming into town and trying to discover the true history of town. But you're saying, is it's nice to get a report so we know what they're doing.
I know that the University of Massachusetts, who is in charge of reports pertaining to Deerfield, told at an October 21st lecture meeting at Historic Deerfield about the Pecumtuck Fort that if our historical commission writes them, then they'll send us reports for Area D, which is the Pecumtuck Fort. And from what I understand, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I did it, never got a response.
And so that's the kind of business that in the year 2006, when I drafted the accountability policy, they had already taken 10,000 artifacts off of that property. Until this date today, it's up to 34,000. And I know they're in litigation with the private landowner over that issue, when in fact it was a private landowner who owns the material in the ground and on top of the ground, and it's turned out to be a real mess, only because there was no contract initially with the private landowner. And if anybody us in this room wanted to do something on somebody's privately owned land, that's the first thing we would have as a contract. So why they don't have a contract is really bizarro, because they're the PhDs that should have a contract, and that's how they're getting away with what they're doing, is by not having a contract. And with the accountability policy, we want the private landowner to make sure they have a written contract with the archaeological entity, whoever they are.
So are you going to follow this up with education for the landowners that are in the high risk?
Yeah, I'd like to see us do that.
I've been doing that right along, you guys,
but I mean
by
something
submitting.
a little bit more formal, so that basically as people change ownership of their hands.
What we're thinking is having this gentleman come and give a talk here, and then as part of that talk, we would also talk about the private landowner, maybe have a sample contract or suggest what other people have done, so have a kind of archaeology education day.
You know what? I think that would be wonderful, because that would be, as long as we get everybody on the same page and we try to keep on top of this, like connecting with other areas that, other historic commissions that have the same issues. And
there's now a gathering together of historical commissions for all of Western Massachusetts.
Oh, really?
And I'm on the steering committee for that, so I'm going to make sure that archaeology is one of the issues that gets brought up.
I sent a copy of the accountability policy to the state archaeologist, Brona Simons. I also sent a copy of it to Elizabeth Chilton at University of Massachusetts, asking them for feedback about it, and they never sent anything back to me. So as far as I'm concerned, we filled our obligation of notifying them of what our intent was, but they never responded to us.
I think that it's appropriate for us to resend it under the town's letterhead, saying that we've just adopted this policy, and see what the feedback is that comes from that.
Oh, that would be wonderful, you guys, because the feedback, you guys, is what's really important, because without open dialogue, we won't be able to resolve this.
They can continue to do stuff in a closet if we don't open up the conversation and have it work.
I can work with you on the wording if you want to.
Well, I make a motion then that we endorse this policy that's been recommended to us and voted for by the Historic Commission.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Just point of interest, maybe it's just ludicrous, but is there any way you can tie our desires into like dig safe? So before anybody starts digging, such as this AT&T or whatever.
No, the dig safe, well, you're right. Because
notify the Historic Society.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So that, because technically before you dig anywhere, but if we could tie it in.
That's a
somehow.
wonderful thing, because Dick issues the trench permits.
Well,
Yeah.
we've got it with
You
trench.
see, now we're cooking, you guys. Because I really wanted this somehow to be tied into the building inspector's office with the sensitivity map. But I was told that we can't issue a permit because of this policy. It has to be uninhibited. So that's great, but we still have to touch base with the building inspector. And maybe he can designate one of us on the Historical Commission board to be that liaison, Indian Affairs Commissioner, whatever you want to call it.
The secret is just what you're talking about. They have to have a trenching permit anytime they dig anything in the state. So all he has to do is forward it on to you guys, and then you have the point of contact of what's happening. And then because I don't think he's even got the information that you got before he did.
Okay.
So he may have it, but in the same token, let's keep it close
I think
knit.
it's a good idea.
Do you want to
Any
take advantage of us being here?
Well, I
for
just
this?
wanted you to mention the other meeting that you're hosting.
Oh, Bill 744?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
there's...
but briefly, because there are other people on the agenda.
Yes.
Yeah. Just to announce
Oh,
it.
they did, I think they did take a vote.
No, we didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
That's why I wanted to know if,
No,
I thought it had
we were
something
still
to do
in
with this.
We were still in the discussion.
She's been paying attention, so.
Actually, we
You
can
can't
give
get anything over Betty.
So
That's a
if
good
there's no
thing.
further, if there's no further discussion on the policy, I have a valid motion second on the floor. No further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make that unanimous, please.
Thank you, Betty. Then Priscilla won't yell at me.
Oh, by the way, Priscilla, today is Tuesday, the 28th of,
First.
Thank you.
today's the 28th, right?
Thank you very much, you guys.
Yes, today is the 28th. Don't you start. And we
Yes, February
started
28th,
28th,
not the 29th.
2014, and
I'm sorry, but
So technically, you guys will draft a letter, and we'll give you a list of the
you can
archaeological...
draft, you can
Okay.
draft a letter. You guys know what you want to say.
Okay.
Get it at least something that
And we'll give it to Casey?
well,
But also be advised, if it's coming through the office, it's public record.
Yeah, absolutely.
and well,
We
that's
want
why we're
this to
looking.
be very
that's-
public.
This is what I got from them, but it would, since it's going to go out, it'll come back through us before it goes out to the door.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
Okay.
So the other thing that's at play is that there is a House bill that's in the Ways and Means Committee now, sponsored by Representatives Cocott and Story, where they want to establish a commission to examine laws related to archaeology, paleontology, and geology just in the Connecticut River Valley.
Wow. Well, we're the only designated Blue Way in the whole nation, and I
Yeah.
think that's part of that Blue Way legislation.
You do?
'cause the
I haven't
Department
heard
of
that connection
yeah.
before.
Well, it's the Department of Interior designation, and it's supposed to bring
Yeah.
all the agencies together.
Huh, it'd be interesting if
I
that
don't
were
know.
the case.
Anyway,
But it came
Because it's been
along-
around for 14,000 years.
Yeah.
So at 1 o'clock on Friday here,
Representative Cocott is coming, because we're curious about what's kind of behind it. One of the things is it says that a member of the commission needs to be a professor of archaeology at the University of Massachusetts.
That got changed.
oh, it did?
Yes.
Where have you seen new things?
I actually got it from the people that had it removed.
Oh,
So, my understanding, so if I've been misled, please,
no, that's
because
pretty good, Mark.
I stopped pushing after I got the, because
Yeah, no, I hadn't heard about it.
it got away from the professor at,
Yeah,
but it was still a professor.
yeah.
And we pushed to actually, bring it out to something a little bit more generic to what the qualifications are.
So it's very, very specific. And one of the things I proposed to him is that there be somebody who represents historical commissions on the board. There was no one in that role. So he's going to come and speak to people
So
who are
that would be
interested
good.
on Friday.
oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm not
Very good.
entirely sure if I can make it. I have to take my son
No,
to the
that's-
airport, but I will
So
try
1
to
o'clock
swing
Friday
by.
on here.
Okay.
Very good. So we got a room reserved?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Very good.
guys.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice
for coming.
evening.
The cemetery thing while the historical commission
Oh.
is here?
If it takes less than 5
This is
minutes.
signing.
I have nothing to say.
This is the contract for
Oh, that's a good
the
idea.
bids. We went out for bid, and we had 4, that's in your packet, 4 bidders to do the next phase of the cemetery gravestones repair project. There were actually 8, although it said 9, there were actually 8 cemeteries around town, plus an evaluation of the Old Albany Road Cemetery for future work to be done there. And you have the list and the low bidder, and I've been through, make sure the low bidder met all the requirements. That's what it looks like.
And
It's
CPA.
in the
But I
green
thought you said there were all
folder.
sorts of, the bids too, or whatever.
That's the bidding
That's it?
sheet. Yep, that's all.
That's all I'm
yeah.
looking for?
Yep.
And
You're
CPA
set.
funded.
And it's on CPA funded, and I think we had 24,000, and the low bid there is for 16, or what is that?
16.5.
Right,
16.8.
and it was Kine Islands again, who has been doing work for the town already.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah. So I've been through it, make sure he met all the requirements, because it has to be a low bid, but it has to meet all the requirements that were in the bid package. And I've been through it. I've also shared it with Drain Chazer and Ken Schoen were here for the bid opening. We got extra copies, and they've been looking at it too. So I have this all ready and set to go for you to sign. The contract is the document we've been using, and when I put the bid package together, I had council review it already, but they still have to sign off. But if you would like, while they're here, and if you have any questions of me about this, or you do
You
it,
all have
Melissa.
been satisfied with what the people have been working. I mean, I've
Very
heard
much so.
nothing but positive comments,
Yeah.
but
He did the Sugarloaf Cemetery,
yes,
which is
right.
beautiful.
Okay. I make a motion that
I
we,
think that's a little, without, if I understood you correctly, it hasn't been signed off by legal? The review that you asked of just
No,
the documentation?
it is, this is a contract that we've been using that legal is always, they still have to sign after you do. But I'm saying there shouldn't be any problem because it's the one that I used that they gave, that I had them review when I put the bid package together. When you do a bid, you have to actually include the proposed contract. So I worked with council on that. So you would sign it first if you want to. And
If
then,
it's ready for signature, I got
Yes,
the
it
impression
is.
from the way you phrased it that there was something left to be done. I just want to make sure that we...
it will then be signed by the contractor,
So I'll
council.
take your motion now, Carolyn.
okay, then I approve, or make a motion that we award the contract to Gravestone Services of New England for $16,500.
It's just for Marcus.
I'll second that.
Friendly motion for the chair
Gravestone
to-
Services of New
The
England.
chair to, is that, you said one signature, or?
Just the chair signs this.
Oh, and that you would, we
Then be
authorize
authorized
you to
to sign for it.
sign, I'm sorry. I didn't realize
And I
it was
get to
one
sign too,
signature.
look at
Okay.
that.
Any other comments? No? Concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Oh, it's not me anyway.
Make that unanimous, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
This evening.
Thank you for all the work you've been doing. Thanks. I really, really appreciate it.
Your chair back. Thank you.
Hey, Dick, are you going to take less than 2 minutes?
We're just going to suggest that you, 7 o'clock, you take them, and I can
Follow afterwards?
follow after.
Thank you.
You're part of that. He segues into 2 subject areas, or 4.
I've got to give you a report on that you had me go over there, so.
Yeah,
Well,
but
then we let it.
you can actually report out as they're doing it. Is that fair, or do you want time before?
These guys do their presentation, and I can fill you in
Yeah.
on my...
Yep.
I think we're,
And then
Oh.
we need one more.
that's one of our,
Well, let's get the, is that really?
Bring your own
broken?
chair.
yeah.
Keep it on the floor.
Slide it.
This is a low-budget operation. That broken chair moves around. We should get it fixed,
I think they all should be
looked at.
drop tested.
I know.
You see them broken, we do that.
You glue them, you do? Okay. Well, maybe just a screw we might have. It's a small little machine screw, it would wonders. We have is it called a hearing or appearance?
Just an appearance.
Just
I
an
have an
appearance.
appearance for the board at 7 o'clock, and this is the Beer Corporation's informational process for a sewer hookup.
Request.
Yes, thank you for having us. Again, I'm Gary Griswold. I'm working on the expansion project to grow the what we call the Deerfield site in the Whately Industrial Park. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present our application with updated information and preliminary connection design. And just wanted to confirm that our plans remain the same, that we are still interested in Deerfield's approval for the Bayer site in the Whately Industrial Park to use the Deerfield wastewater treatment plant for sanitary sewer needs. This will help us to support our short-term and long-term expansion plans, and we are planning or hoping to, by 2016, being able to add jobs to the area that will contribute about $1 million of wages and benefits to the area. Our plans are to continue to grow, and hopefully by another 2 years we would add a similar amount of jobs to the area. For Bayer, the connection to the Deerfield wastewater treatment plant is essential for our long-term sustainability. And for Deerfield, we feel that Bayer represents a customer who is willing to work with you today. And our discharge request represents a fairly small portion, it's a very small portion of the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant. Recently, we had Deerfield personnel visit our site. I feel the visit went fairly well with Sean and Dick, and I think their feedback is positive, and I'd ask Dick to maybe make some comments based on what he saw. If you'd like to, you're okay.
Ready? Fine.
He's made you part of his presentation.
Oh,
Go
God.
for it. Go for it, boss.
I am absolutely neutral, and I am reporting on what I saw. And I first have to say we have a non-disclosure portion with Bayer because proprietary information they have. So I'll be unable to answer some questions. Okay?
That's what they're here for.
Well, what I can tell you is the only sewer facility that they need are restrooms. And the reason is their expansion is going to cause an issue with their present septic system scenarios, so making it extremely difficult for that to function. There are no water usages used in their manufacturing process that could be hazardous, dumped on the ground. There are no floor drains or availability of plumbing, sewer connections other than the bathrooms. As a matter of fact, it's going to be a little difficult for them to even get from here to there with future sewer or septic. So there's no possibility of any spills. There's no possibility of anything. What we are talking about are bathrooms. And Bayer we had a presentation, and I'm speaking, unfortunately Sean's not here, but he's on the same wavelength. They can speak to what they need for capacity because we've gone over that, and they're willing to, their statement to Sean and myself was, at any time with a notice, they were willing to disconnect from the sewer should they get a sewer hookup. So, I mean, if there's anything you want to ask beyond that, I don't.
So, Dick, what you're saying is basically this is a residential type hookup in the sense it's pretty much
basically
that kind of usage.
The sewer usage from what I've seen of their plans, again, and what their presentation has changed slightly. They had a few errors in their original, can I use that term? You had a few errors in your original proposal. It would probably be no more of a sewer usage than adding a restaurant to town, a small restaurant or something to that effect. There's nothing that can go down there except septic.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you. So since our visit and our meetings, we have a better understanding of the details needed for our application, and we've also brought the preliminary connection design that Ty and Bond. So with Ty and Bond, we have revised and updated our application, including the preliminary connection design with method to monitor discharge by volume. The updated application and system design should address the concerns expressed during our previous meetings. And at this time, I'd like to respectfully submit the application and turn it over to Mike Petrin to go over the application and the system design, if that's appropriate.
Okay.
So I have copies if you'd like to see it, or and to the chair, and you can. Anybody?
I can go through quickly
I have
what
to
we...
recuse myself from this.
Oh, that's
Okay.
right. Okay. So yeah, there's two for your records, one for viewing, unless you'd like one.
Prevent you from looking at it.
Right, I'll pass it on too.
After further review of their water consumption, our original application included a review of a very short time period, which was during the summer months. They use more water and evaporate more water in their cooling needs during the summer months, stretching that out over a year period. It appears as though they do, on average, yearly average, use less water than what we originally submitted. So what we did was we went through and revised the, I'll say, the amount of water being used at the facility. That was the major change here. Essentially, it went from around 9,400 gallons per day to 6,300 gallons per day. I think the important thing to note, though, the domestic waste, your sanitary sewer, that has not changed. Our estimate still remains about, at 500 gallons per day. So really just their evaporation and irrigation, taking that into consideration during the summer months, that was added or modified.
Okay.
For the year average.
For the yearly average, correct. Yep.
And then for the design, I don't know if you want us to just submit that, and then
Yeah.
they can
I've
review
got
it, or
some
whether you want to
copies
do it
here.
here.
I need to make a comment about Sean investigated the manhole from the industrial park, and
I can
you
talk a little
guys,
bit about that,
There's a
too.
problem with that manhole.
Yes.
And I really think you need to discuss that.
Yes, and we can talk about that, and we do have a solution to that also. I can lay out a couple sets of plans here for everyone.
Is any of this proprietary?
No, this is,
Because-
we would, that's fine.
It has pretty good optics on it, so.
That's okay. So this is, again, it's when we came, there was a kind of indication that we
Is it
were
just
going to go
one?
with a much bigger connection.
It's a
And we're,
single sheet. I just thought I'd give one.
I was going to say, this is, I just want to make sure that, Dick has verified that
I believe
it is
I've
the
seen
five,
all this, right?
yeah, the 500
Hand
gallons a
the backwards
day
over there to show.
average.
well, this, you have, and
it's-
it talks about the size that we're going to come in and kind of the design after looking at the connection point, that there's some
Do you want to see this?
work that needs to be done that
That way you and share it with the, whatever the reporter there.
I've already seen all this.
No, you've-
I've already,
The connection is what size? 2-inch connection, okay. All right, I'm sorry.
So is this my copy, or is it?
Yeah, you can take that with you, but I hear,
Okay.
just leave it out so you can all
explain.
see it right now.
Great.
And I'm going to stand up to do this, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Essentially, Bayer, the facility currently has two sets of bathrooms, one being in their manufacturing area and another being in their office area. So we have two lines coming out, here and here, coming out of the building, tying into a central collection system to a duplex pump station, 2 pumps within it. From there, a force main that would run through Fairview Way, through the DDIC-owned property, to the sewer manhole. And again, this is I'll say, conceptual in nature. We haven't done a final design yet. We'd like to get an approval, and we obviously, as Gary indicated, we are working on a facility expansion, so some of this may change slightly, but this is the general concept.
Very good.
but a 2-inch connection's not going to change.
Yeah, it's going to
And
be a
your
small
average isn't
diameter
gonna change.
force main.
Okay.
It's likely going to be 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches. I can't see it being anything more than a 2-inch pipe, depending on the type of pump station that they have.
Okay.
Likely thinking about, you heard the E1 systems, manufactured low-pressure pump systems. That is likely going to be appropriate here, but again, until we finalize those details. It could be a conventional concrete tank with duplex pumps in it also. Not sure yet which way we're going to go. I think the most important thing is that we are going to include a flow meter within the pump station. That's your most accurate way of tracking flows.
Right.
How we get that flow information to the town for billing purposes, that's up for discussion. there's a lot of different ways to do that, too.
I'm sure we can resolve that. with the highway
I need
department.
the highway and
Yeah.
Actually, Sean already has that in his mind to present to you.
well, that's fine, but again, it's going to have to be presented as a holistic type thought process with where it's going and
So as Dick indicated, there are some unique things going on with this sewer system out here on Industrial Drive West. It's my understanding when when Sean had someone open the manhole, it was full of water. The reason being is that the pipes coming in and going out are tied together. They're actually hanging in the air in the manhole, tied together with a coupling. So there's not a pipe coming in with a channel in the bottom like you would usually see in a pipe going out open to the atmosphere. Essentially, they're tied in the air.
so it's a closed system through the pipe.
It's a closed system through the pipe, and we had not only the Bayer property surveyed, we did a little section of Industrial Drive West. When the surveyor opened the manhole downstream, he also saw that it was full of water. I'm assuming that those pipes are also joined together too, which is why there's water standing in it. I can't confirm that until it's pumped out and actually visibly observed, but that's the scenario. So we can't simply just core a hole and put our force main in to connect to it. We're going to have to deconstruct this manhole, fill in underneath the pipe, create a new base slab. And have you guys heard of a doghouse manhole? Mm-hmm. Okay. Set a doghouse manhole on top, rebuild your sewer inverts to make this work. So, and that's what we have here is a detail kind of proposing that.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what we need to get to an engineering.
Yep. And then
We'll
we would detail that more
right.
As we progress
You'd
further
have the
along.
dialogue to work on that. So.
Yep. And I don't know, moving forward, when or if we do get your approval, if it would be simply having a final engineered document set that we provide to Sean for review in the future.
How does that,
Approval.
since Edic owns the manhole,
Or
is Sean responsible for that?
That's why Sean needs to.
potentially having DDIC review and approve them.
Right.
I don't know the process yet, but
Right. We'll work it through that process.
but this is, I think, schematically how we would go
Ballpark.
about doing this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. As part of the meeting, I was hoping to discuss and maybe get some indication from Deerfield on a few items. And you can tell me if this is too much detail, but
Gentlemen, if you guys want to go over and caucus in there so that you can talk about it, it's hard for us to have two meetings going at the same time.
I know it's a little late in the game for us to be doing our homework.
It's not, because what's going to happen is this is going to come to you guys for your review and consideration in the process. So it's not that you're late in the game, but if you don't hear what's being said, it's kind of hard to keep it on track so that we understand.
all right, some of the things that we'd be interested in getting some input on would be, the limits on what is to be discharged, and we feel it's sewage and sanitary waste only for the type of wastewater treatment plant that exists, which is biological only. The maximum allowable discharge, which we've indicated on, if that's acceptable, which is on our application. How should we meter it? Does it need to be auditable to make sure that it's accurate and you're pleased with what we're doing? This plan allows for growth, which is good. What would the connection fee be to get an indication of that? The usage fee for what sewage will be sent to the wastewater treatment plant. So basically, what is the industrial rate? Have an indication of what that would be. Usage fee for volumes that exceed the maximum allowable daily discharge. What premium would that be? And then terms of the connection and reasons for possible termination with timing and possible mediation if that's terms of the connection, such as Bayer will pay for the construction and maintenance of the connection to the access point in Industrial Drive West and any testing needs that we need to follow. That's all I have.
I have no problems with this because its residential size is 2-inch, and the bottom line here is there's going to be at least $1 million of salaries in generated over the course of the year, and at least. And we need jobs. We need good jobs in the area. So, and we want to seem like we're working with you, so there's no excuse for you to pull out and go somewhere else. So I'm in support of this. And how you want to do it, Mark? You want to give them a tentative approval, and then
the rest before we close the hearing out.
All right.
We're going to ask our questions, and as soon as we get done, I'll open it to the people. Any questions?
And advice from my company, I have to keep out of this thing completely.
Understood. Anybody else?
Part that he didn't emphasize was, and he emphasized that with John and myself, in the event that we had a lack of sewer capacity for town of Deerfield, they would terminate upon notice. Am I correct? Is that statement?
We would like to have
with some time.
We need some time. If it becomes a hardship for the town, we would have to look to invest and put a new septic field in. So that would be not the preferred way to go, but it would.
Right. That would be part of the terms of endearment that would work through the process. Any other questions at this point? I'm not going to forget you, I promise. If you would ask your question, if it's not loud enough, I'll have to repeat it, only so that the audience can. Okay. Please identify yourself and where you live.
Diane Martin. I live in South Deerfield, outside of the septic range. I think over half of the town deals without a septic. We've had to do on our own. But that's not really what my point is. There have been businesses, and I believe it's the medical building on the corner of 5 and 10 and 116 that have been.
That's okay. I'll repeat it for him. Go ahead.
Oh, no, why don't you,
It's extensive.
I've had, yeah.
No, it's on television.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's really hard. People people have a hard time hearing on the TV.
Alrighty. My name's Diane Martin, and I live outside of the septic system. I'd say at least half of the town has had to fend for themselves as far as septic or sewer goes. But that's not the gist of my comment. I believe the businesses on the corner of 5 and 10 and 116, where the medical building final markdown, have been asking for sewer connection for over 20 years, and we've not allowed them to hitch up to our septic system. If we allow them to come in, we are then opening up the 116 corridor for any Whately business that wants to come in and hitch up. Whether or not they're bringing in businesses, we are now affecting the septic, which is the whole town, and whether or not it wants to become a joint Whately-Deerfield sewage treatment plant, because that whole corridor, it's still woods and trees. There's a lot of businesses can come in, bringing more than restaurant quality discharge. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want a response to that? Or is that just an informational thought for everybody?
No, it's an informational.
What you said is accurate. I don't think 20 years is it, because it came while I've been here, and I don't think
they've come back a few times and have been denied a few times.
Yeah, and
shortly after the building was built.
Right, but at the time we had no sewer capacity, so it's a big difference. So I can assure you that we will take into consideration sewer expansion for the town in the sewer capacity thought process that goes on. So it is that Pandora's box that we're aware that we're fringing looking at. So we do appreciate your comments. Any others?
John Pachork. I'm here on behalf of DEDIC. I'd like to read a letter that was sent to Mark Gilmore, Chair.
John, can you come to the mic? We need it for the minutes primarily. Thank you.
Also, Nancy Pachork really chewed me out the other day because we weren't making people come up to use the mic. So you can tell Nancy it's her fault that we're making her do this.
Nancy, you got to stop your stuff.
No, I promised her that I would make you come up. I'd make everybody come up. Yes.
Not you.
At its meeting on Thursday, December 12th, 2013, the Board of the Deerfield Economic Development Industrial Corporation again discussed a proposal from Bear Material Science, LLC, located in Whately Industrial Park, to be connected to the Deerfield Sewage Treatment Plant. The DEDIC Board again unanimously agreed this proposal should not be considered until studies and plans are completed, detailing what is required to meet the current and future treatment plant needs of the residential and commercial interests of Deerfield. Deferring this proposal is now even more important due to the Select Board's recent discussion about potential uses of the Oxford pickle plant property. Economic development, as envisioned by the Select Board, requires sewer treatment capacity, as it is critical for both business and residential growth. For these reasons, the Deerfield Board cannot grant permission to the Bayer Material Science LLC to proceed with transecting Deerfield DEDIC property for a connection to Deerfield sewer system. And I want to make sure you know that the entire area is ringed around by a 10-foot non-permeable piece of property that you can't go through without going through DEDIC. The Deerfield Board is open to discussing this proposal and the reasons for denying it, but would recommend tabling action on this request until it is presented at the next town meeting for a complete and balanced discussion, so all town residents and interested parties understand the issue and consequences involved. Should the town meeting agree the proposed connection is in the best interest of the town of Deerfield, the DEDIC Board would not stand in the way of this connection. Thank you very much for your attention. We look forward to hearing from you at your earliest convenience. And we have not heard yet. But the thing I wanted to add to this is that 3 years ago I was on the board for this board for 18 years. During that time, we've had a lot of problems with the sewer system. During those times, if you understand the way the system is set up, it's rated for 850,000 gallons. If you run over 80% for 90 consecutive days, the state will mandate that you put in a brand new plant. I don't know what a new plant would cost, but I'm guesstimating $10, $15, $20 million. We almost hit that threshold 2 or 3 times. Now, when you say you're willing to disconnect at a moment's notice, I would bet 10 to 1 that you'd probably take us to court and say, well, this is going to be a hardship on us, so you can't disconnect us now. And then who pays for all that new plant? Who pays for all the infrastructure? The town of Deerfield turned around and paid 2 separate articles, $250,000 each to clean up part of the system, and we still don't have it totally squared away. Now, I appreciate that you want to bring jobs, and that's great. However, we don't feel this is right that we turn around and give away sewer capacity, which is an asset for DEDIC, and we need it. And right now, somebody's negotiating to go into that big Millers Falls building. And we don't know what they're going in there. We don't know what they're going to need for sewer. We don't know what they're going to need for water. So I think this is premature to turn around and just give it away because we're good neighbors. So the DEDIC Board was unanimous, and they said, hold this off and do not support it. Let's do a study and figure out if we can really afford to give it away. Thank you.
Appreciate DEDIC's being here at the meeting. I appreciate your letter. Unfortunately, the inaccuracies of the statements of giving stuff away is poor choice of words. There is nothing going to be given away. What's going to be proposed by the sewer group is going to be equitable to the town, or it will not happen. And I'm a little saddened by the fact that we've got, as John well knows, we have over 50% of the capacity in both of our facilities at this point in time, and the period of time in which we got to the 1.2 million, which is a good 2/3 more than our capacity, was because of inflow and infrastructure problems. It was not because of sewer capacity or sewer capabilities. Our facilities are running less than half. They can be increased easily with today's technology. And we're trying to throw old stuff onto a new decision process. And I would really like it if those groups of people who would like to come to the table and discuss what a real thought process is of that aspect of it, that would be great. And I really would like to know if DEDIC's thoughts are such that they're going to try to stop the event in some legal aspect of it, because the negotiations with the sewer commissioners, the sewer operators, and in good faith with the people who are here to have this type of hearing would like to see that up front, I guess. So I personally would like to see where you're going with this. And again, they're not being giving anything, and to the best of my knowledge, with what was been proposed, it's less than a percent of the capability of the facility, and it's no more than a good-sized household. Where we go with it and the policies and procedures that need to govern it is going to be in place before this happens, and I kind of feel badly that the assumption was that they won't be. So I would like to go to DEDIC's meeting and discuss this with them. Unfortunately, I don't schedule the sequence of events in the way that they happen. They come to us, and I feel the request is a very valid one with what I've been gotten from our department heads and the people we pay a lot of money to help us run the town and keep it safe. So thank you for your input, and I will be at one of your meetings fairly shortly, as long as you post it, and we'll have a discussion to make sure that what your concerns are addressed, and if they can't be addressed, then so be it. But I think it needs to be done more quickly, and I think the annual town meeting is not the place to have discussion about what is good for town business. I think that we'll have town meetings, or we'll have informational meetings, but I don't think that it will be on the agenda unless somebody wants to float an article onto the warrant. Any other? Yes, sir. Please come up and speak into the mic. Identify yourself, because there's at least two people in town who don't know who you are.
My name is Robert James Decker III.
I didn't need all that.
Well, you
it's
asked.
A little.
If you look at the...
Yeah, Charlie's brother.
Yeah, I'm the big brother. Anyway, if you go back and you look back 15 years ago, when the Millis Falls tool plant was running in its heyday, when it was running with pretty much full capacity, they were using an awful lot of water.
Mm-hmm.
And if whoever goes in there uses that much water, it's going to pretty much use up your capacity. I've seen the numbers. I don't have them with me. We have a whole bunch of information on it that the DEDIC board has kept that shows what the water consumption was. So, but the main thing here is we want to make sure that we don't lose the potential capacity we might have.
I think 1% is losing is not a discussion.
Well, I don't.
And I'll tell you right now, and I was around when this all occurred also, so my memory is as clear as yours, which is probably close to mud. But the reality of it was they got charged for what they did wrong. And basically, they dumped a lot of stuff into the sewer system that they weren't supposed to do.
Well, I agree with it. I agree.
And basically, if DEDIC is going to allow someone who comes in to use that kind of capacity, I hope that they get compensated enough to help the town make that kind of modification, because that, with their inflow, would take us to that level. And
I don't know who the proposed tenant is,
but
or
again,
even if they have one. But the point that I want to make is we shouldn't let this capacity go fast.
It's not going fast.
All right.
And it's going to be very well, and I'm hoping you'll come to the meetings and the discussions.
No. Well,
I hope that you'll have somebody sitting on this process, because...
But if you remember about 45 years ago, when the industrial park was formed...
I was playing basketball
in the fourth grade, probably. But I was on the planning board at that time.
Right.
And the town of Whately's officials were asked when this whole thing was going to get rezoned, and they didn't want to participate.
This has nothing to do with that. And if you want to talk about Tri-Town Beach, we'll have a drink later on.
We're not even going to talk about that.
It. The reality of it is this has nothing to do with that. And you, sir, really should understand that technology has changed in 45 years. People do change occasionally in 45 years. And if we're going to use that to benchmark our thought processes...
But what I'm trying to say is
Bob,
it was all well thought out to begin with. It all should have been together.
Bob, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Would you have had this discussion or concern about a
ask your question.
hookup if another house wanted to be hooked up? I mean, because we're talking about a house capacity.
Well,
I
an
mean,
awful lot of people
I mean-
didn't get to build a house when they had the sewer moratorium in town, and it was a great way to control growth.
But again, that's in the past, and we're talking about, I mean, one of the things that Dave wants to address is looking at the sewer system again. I mean, it's
Well, it
going to
should
be
be.
very, very expensive. There's no question.
Well, it should
But
be,
we,
but-
we are less than 50% capacity. Our rates are going up because there
the
isn't
reason you're
enough,
less than
enough
50%
using.
capacity right now is Oxford moved out of town, and Miller's Falls building isn't being used, and they dropped a whole bunch of capacity right there. You're selling the Oxford property this week, aren't you?
Bob, listen.
Hope so.
Bob, listen.
I hope not. I'd rather keep it, to tell you the truth.
Bob,
Okay.
I just have a question though. We're talking about trying to be business friendly, and adding to $1 million or more to the valley in wages, good jobs. Don't you think that's important for a hookup
if-
that is household size?
But
Don't
if
you
it's
think that's
household size, you could turn around that land, all perks down there. They could run that line out over into the land that they just bought and put their septic there.
That was a question that Dick investigated. He has assured me that he is satisfied with the reasoning for this hookup, and is part of his investigation. And I'm really satisfied that he really did investigate it, because you know what, he was not in favor of this personally before he started.
He may still not be in favor of it. I don't know.
I-
He said he
well-
was neutral when he sat down.
I mean, he gave a report that was favorable.
Anyway,
And so
you
I
understand.
have to
You
say,
understand where my position is.
I do, Bob. I do.
If those two parcels get built industrial, you won't have any capacity, and you need to expand into the Route 5 and 10 going all the way up to what used to be the Canalate, and you probably want to turn around and take care of those the sewer needs on Hillside Road and all the areas where septics are failing.
Well,
So, and
we
you
are
also-
intending to look into it,
Yeah.
Bob. But you have to realize this is not costing the town money. They're going to pay us for the hookup. What you're
Oh, you
talking
count.
about is betterment fees and a huge expansion of our infrastructure that is a whole different
Well, it's got to
discussion.
be done. So,
I'm
thank you.
not saying that it shouldn't be done one way or the other, but it's the dollar amounts and who pays for it is a tremendously different thing. And it's a whole different discussion. I know. I'm stopped.
You got a concern? Pardon?
Just listening to you guys.
Okay. No, you seemed like you had a question that you didn't understand.
When you made a personal comment, I didn't think that was right, but I forgot.
Oh,
If I
well,
said something-
if I said something that was,
Mom was-
if I said something that was negative or derogatory, my mother would slap me, and I do apologize for that one. So,
She wouldn't slap
the
you.
finger.
It would be the finger.
Yes.
I still remember that.
So, any other?
Yeah, I still, I've done the investigation. We're bound by the proprietary information, okay? So I really can't say any more than what everybody's repeated about the income status and the economics of it crossing the border to our restaurants and stores and stuff from people working there. But I want to point out, to me, is the biggest important factor, they're willing to disconnect. And my suggestion would be put them on a 5-year license or 10-year license or something like that, and with a legal document if it comes down to that.
Any hookup that happens on the sewer is going to have to be a legal document.
Yeah. So
it's going to go through a complete
I
iteration of how much,
again,
where, and everything else. And unfortunately, Sean not being here and not getting the feedback as to where we sit in that area.
unfortunately, I can't. I know what his thoughts are, but I can't.
But you can't.
Can't speak for him.
Because
But-
you're just getting the documentation, and
Yeah.
we're looking for a package that can be reviewed and put into
You need to
perspective,
talk to
so,
him, and there's also a major cost factor with repairing those manholes.
Well,
So
I need to understand why the manholes are the way they are.
they're 45 years old.
No, I don't see anybody putting a through connection 45
Well,
years ago for,
45 years ago, maybe the engineer
So I don't know if there's a DEDIC spec.
Shouldn't be in town anymore.
I don't know if there's a DEDIC spec for how it was to be done or what it was supposed to be done. So that's a question that really needs to be answered. And in any
Somebody's
case,
going to have to face that repair because that's going to pop up in his discussion. I don't know who's responsible for that. So,
Dick, I can't answer your question.
Can't answer
you
it
can't
either.
answer it either. So can we let it go on that one and
Yeah,
just
okay.
stick to what we do know? And
I'm done.
Okay. Anything else you guys would like to add?
No, thank you for your time.
I appreciate it. I am committed to work through the process, is not guaranteeing that anything will come of it, but I will make sure that it moves timely and that you'll be fed back any negative or positive information as soon as we have it. And I'm assuming that Sean will be contacting you for where to put, because at this point, if we decide to move forward after getting a hearing from him, he's going to have to get all the documentation so they can be reviewed both by DEDIC and by our engineer.
That's understandable.
That makes sense?
You know, it's, the ultimate goal of any of the boards in town is to make sure that we're protecting the interests of the town of Deerfield and looking at them seriously and making sure that we're not creating a problem by
We're
doing something.
We're solving more problems than we
Solving one
start.
problem, because I look at it and, I have other things going through my mind that for safety concerns, but it has nothing to do with sewer. But it's,
Yes.
it's
We need open communications that have been closed
it's
for
just
quite a few years. So we thank you for sticking the olive branch out there. We hope it doesn't catch on fire. So.
And thank you for allowing Dick and Sean a tour, because it reassured and laid to rest all my concerns.
Very good. Right. Thank you again.
I do have a question. Obviously, to keep this process moving forward, we need to meet with DEDIC eventually to talk about obtaining an easement and permission to cross their property, as well as get an easement within the right-of-way that they want to maintain. We approached the board first as a first step.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if we couldn't get a sewer connection, we weren't going to spend additional effort.
I think that if I can anticipate your question, and I hope I didn't cut you off.
No, that's fine.
Is I assume that the ball's in our court from the sewer department with respect, and they need to come up with what are the connection fees. Are the manholes really broken, and is this a value added to the process? And we need to get that to DEDIC with, these are our reasons for why we think this is appropriate for the town of Deerfield. And I would recommend at that time we either joint meet or you follow the meeting up with a meeting with DEDIC. Then you can do whatever presentations, but we need to get the technical aspect of it from our point of view.
So we will not gain, or you guys won't authorize the connection without us meeting with DEDIC first? I'm just trying to figure out the process here, that's all.
The connection can be authorized by us, but we don't know what has to happen for you to get from your facility to the pipe that's in their domain. Okay. So we haven't legally looked at all of that. So I can authorize it, but if you can't get there, it doesn't do you any good. So we need to figure out what are the legal.
Yeah, I think from Bayer's perspective is that we don't want to go to DEDIC if we're not even going to obtain authorization. Right. So I don't know. I'll have to discuss that with Gary, whether or not we want to push forward and meet with DEDIC without your authorization.
From my point of view, the authorization is not a. I'm personally in favor of the connection. I have no technical capability to tell you that it's a good deal for the town to do this. I can't tell you how much the why flows and the how comes. You can say that you have the potential to have it and go meet with DEDIC on the discussion, but they're going to ask you what's in it for the town of Deerfield. So my whole thought process is until I give you the what-fors from Deerfield, we're just trying to figure out whether we ought to put the horse on which end of the cart.
Okay. Then I think we would stay on hold until we can obtain some sort of draft agreement with conditions and rates.
That would be smart, and that's what I want to get out. And I thought I would have the baselines of some of that today, but we'll be working on it fairly quickly.
Okay, great.
So that we understand.
I think what you're looking for is that since Dave can't vote, or he would be abstaining. Mark and I seem to be in support of the hookup.
Thank you.
So what we have to work out is the fee, hookup fees.
And the technical aspects of it.
Right.
I mean,
and obviously the work in the manholes.
Well, yeah, it kind of bothers me because we've got a system that is a closed system for all intents and purposes.
At least in that one manhole.
You said there might be two.
Yes, but until I get in there.
Until we do that, then we have to make sure that if a closed system is designed for a reason.
And then that's the other question too. Is this actually I don't think it's a force main. No one would have a 10-inch force main.
Well, that's why it's got me baffled. So that's a nuance that I have to deal with to make sure technically we do our homework.
Yeah, agreed.
So, if we do it to one manhole, do I have 35 on the facility? I know that it does a pretty
I believe there's three or four.
Arduous thought process. So I will be getting back to you fairly quickly with details.
So we will wait on hold until we hear back from you guys. Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
Great.
Good to see you all again.
Any other questions?
Much.
Anybody getting closing thoughts or questions? Please feed any questions or comments to through my office or our office so that basically we can address them. We want to make sure that we don't have any surprises at the 11th hour.
Great.
So,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Have a good night. I do.
Did you want a secondary copy? For the
Yeah, if you want to leave that, that would be good.
That, right here,
That would be good for the highway department.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How much stuff do we have left on our board, our meeting?
There isn't much left, Mark.
Okay. Before you guys leave, DEDIC-wise, if you guys if you guys can let us know when your next meeting is going to be scheduled?
Yeah, it's February 13th. 13th. Yeah.
Okay. Time?
What time, John?
Time 8:45 in the morning.
Yeah. February 13th, 8:45.
Do you think you could make that in the afternoon? John, do you think you could? Do you think you all?
That's been a problem with one individual.
Oh, has to be 8:45.
We were meeting later, but we had to pull it in, and we did move it from 8:30 to 8:45. But
honestly, I'm going to have a hard time meeting at 8:45 because I watch Madeline while Victoria goes to school.
Bring her with you.
Bring her with you.
All right.
Well, thank you guys, and we'll try to either schedule a meeting if we can't. One of us can't make it to your meeting, in which we can
drop you after her.
Get into the details. If you want to make a later
details.
meeting or something, we'll do that. We'll try and get a quorum.
Okay.
not that it's highly important, but just on John's behalf, I think when he said give it away, meaning the sewer capacity, I don't think he meant in dollars and cents. He just meant giving up capacity.
Well, everything has a value. I think you thoroughly understand that.
I'm just explaining, I think
I know what he meant, but the people out on TV land are hearing giving it away as if we're not keeping the town's good.
That's good policy.
And it certainly is not my intention that we charge the same rate.
It was
I mean, we're talking about.
Please, it's still on TV, so we'll talk about this later. Thank you very much, Mr. Healy.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Bob.
Can we
adjourn?
No.
Adjourn?
No. Yeah. Request from town council, whether this could be a precedent-setting thing that could get us in trouble?
Well, I think that where it sits right now is the sewer commissioners, which happen to be us, to come up with a proposal to have them review. There are three things that need to be, as best of my knowledge right now, needs to be addressed, as you said. What are the parts of the contract that we're offering up. Is it a legal document or not? What is our legal rights to the sewer lines that exist on DDIC's property? And the final one is, what are we doing to the wholesome of the town? What obligations do we have, and is it possible to need that 1% or even 2%, even if we called it 5% capacity? What are we doing to the town in the sewer command? And I want to make people understand that in reality, we have given away sewer connections in the past, right after the Oxford Pickles left. We opened up the moratorium and started allowing people to sign on. We have not, as sewer commissioners, done anything in the light of planning because of the monetary value, and it didn't fit our plans. We've been through everything on the plan, and this is the next thing to show up, which is a big expenditure. We're finishing up the highway garage, and we're focusing on the things that we can do. The next milestone is looking at what do we do with the sewers. And again, we had a long list, as you well know, of what we needed to do to the town, and we've finished out that list. We have EMS, sewers, and seniors that now populate this list all over again, not in any particular order, but
I was just going to say, I think we have to address the senior center.
But all of them are in there, and the thing about it is 2 or 3 of them might be beneficial to deal with together. So we've had a mono thought process, taking and knocking off one thing off at a time, but it might be time for us to look at integrating this thought with a business proposal. One of the things that doesn't come out here is that our income from commercial industrial has dwindled with all these people that talked about what has closed, and we're not doing a real good job of enticing those people to come back and bring that percentage back up to where it was. So we have to think out of the box to get revenue here, or we're going to be facing some tougher times. So it's not a conclusion to any statement that's been made. It's just the fact that we've got a lot of work ahead of us. Yes, sir.
Just one little point of information. Normally, commercial property has easements for water, sewer, and electric. Yeah. I would suggest researching the deed to see if those exist to the town of Deerfield or power companies or whatever easements.
Sounds like something the building commissioner can do for us. Do you know him?
God, he should keep quiet. Yes, he could do that.
I think it's very important that aspect of it, that
needs to be researched up first.
And
front.
Well, it's parallel paths.
Yeah, exactly.
From where I'm seeing, that may be a deal breaker in where we go and don't go.
Yeah. Can I just comment on just an observation, really great remarks you just made about economic development in the community. That's their charge, one of the DDIC's charge. And so I hope that when you go, you repeat your speech with them. It was very...
Well, I will, and I'm hoping they thoroughly understand that this is a big picture. I'm not going to hold it up for another 20 or 40 years because of stuff that happened 40 years ago. We have to think of a plan and enact it. And if we don't have a plan, we don't have anything. So I hope that the message is coming across loud and clear that we have to think of all the avenues to do economic development and where it needs to exist. Well,
I just the thought of the job, additional jobs, good jobs, but also the fact that there just aren't many jobs, opportunities. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're trying to keep your kids in the, have opportunity for kids, but there just aren't a lot of good, well-paying jobs with benefits. Mm-hmm. And I would certainly hate to give them an excuse to pull out and move somewhere else. So,
well, those are things that we can't
No, I know,
control.
but I mean,
But we can take it into consideration.
It's economic development is essential for the whole area. It's not just for the town. And some of the things that we discussed this weekend is working with the different towns. So it's important, And I look at this and, I'm thinking of their expansion and everything, and, I know it's going to get me in a lot of trouble, but I think we should connect Fairview Way with...
Your company said to be quiet.
Well, this has nothing to do with that. I'm thinking about public safety, because I don't like all that traffic coming out of Pine Street.
I know.
Which is in Deerfield.
Yep.
That is an unsafe area to be coming out onto 116.
Would you like to have this discussion on your next agenda?
Yes.
I put anything on the next agenda.
The only thing is, you guys, I agree with you 100%, Dave. But you know what? We've got to work on the budget, and
I realize that.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to your suggestion and put it on the agenda for us to have the discussion with DEDIC first before we go on to public hearing discussing something that really is in their preview at this point. So,
well, we need to have some more discussion.
I would like to see us get on.
I think with DEDIC, the sewer raised the hair a little bit. I think, my comment's going to make them pull it out.
But they have to be in the loop.
Yes,
I
understand that.
We have to make it understood that this is not power play or an ego issue. It's the fact that it's a necessity for the town to survive. So we need to get people on the same place, same pages. So now that I got on the soapbox, I was hoping nobody else would do. I say I banish myself at this point and move on to any other discussion before we move on to the next meeting that was supposed to be at 6:45 with Dick.
Thank you, Dick, for waiting.
So,
I had no choice anyways. We have been rated by the ISO, which is the Insurance Services Office for the state, which statistically rates building code effectiveness, and I have a complete evaluation that was done this past fall, and it's for the Deerfield Code Enforcement Agency, not just the building inspector, okay? And I forwarded you a copy of their response and our ratings that we received from the insurance services. And we have been downgraded slightly because of some issues. And what this insurance rating does, it sets the rate on insurance premiums for property and casualty for any construction that's done in the town of Deerfield. For example, when the new highway garage gets completed and we have to get our regular insurance, because we have lost some points in the rating, that insurance premium will be higher. We have an opportunity, a short window, to correct some of the concerns and issues of the insurance rating. It's the Building Code Enforcement Evaluation Report is what this is. So a couple of the issues are building inspection department and the services rendered by the building inspector, the plumbing inspector, and the wiring inspector. And another portion of it is the keeping of the documents for building permits and having them all properly recorded and available to access. Presently, the building permit portion is taken care of. What's missing from our documentation in this report is the plumbing inspector's permits, the wiring inspector's permits. They're operating independently and away from the town hall, and the permits are not issued out of the town hall and kept on file here. So if somebody came to do a records request, we may or may not have those paperwork, and we may or may not know where it is. So by state statute, the plumbing inspector is appointed by the building commissioner, and shame on him for not correcting this problem, because he was unaware of it. So what I'm saying tonight is that we need to organize the building inspection department where permits are issued out of the building here and retained in the building, serial numbered, and so forth and so on. And in order to do that, someone has to be in charge of that office and make sure those things happen. By statute, the building commissioner is already in charge of the plumbing inspector. So I'm requesting that the electrical inspector be included in that, and that we have some organizational meetings to try to upgrade our status, because we have a window of opportunity if we submit, you know, where things are going to be and how things are going to be constructed. For example, there's a checkoff list that's required from the insurance audit that, okay, when did you do these inspections and do you have a record of that? So we need to maintain, you know, dates that people went on inspections and things like that nature. So that kind of is an overview and simplifies it.
Question I have.
Yes.
The software grant that we have, or
we are getting.
We're getting.
That we don't have.
We may. We don't know if we're getting yet. We'll know in a couple weeks that they're supposed to announce the grant.
That will be very effective in helping this process.
Yeah.
Okay. That will take a major burden off of staff to, you know, actually do the data collection and stuff. That'll take a major burden. That will not resolve the issue of the organizational issue.
No, and, you know, from some of the discussions I've had, you know, it's a major concern that essential parts of permitting process paperwork are in individuals' homes.
That is...
All the paperwork should be kept in the town hall.
That is part of the reason we're downgraded. Because
So, you know,
when they came in to do the audit, they wanted a list of all the building permits I've done in the past 2 years, whatever it was. And they physically went to the files and said, pull me up the documentation for this piece of property, okay? The majority of the permits were not in there that we needed. They're, you know, and it's not just one particular permit. It's not particularly any one, but
well,
every
the plumbing
file,
inspector and the wiring inspector are keeping all the permits at their homes.
Well, every file was missing a permit or two, so that was part of the issue. The fire department has a separate audit from us, and I don't know their scoring over there, but
it does have a monetary impact. It's not. I used to be in insurance, and it's not just new buildings. It is the overall rate. So it affects town-wide rates.
The purpose of this isn't to change anybody's pay scale or anybody's status or anything. It's to organize how the permits and where they're kept and where somebody can call in to leave a message that there's an inspection required rather than a home phone. That's kind of the questions or the things should be directed to a office phone here and retrieved by somebody, you know, through the answering machine. And so,
see, that's good, but that's one of the major problems with our phone system. Because it doesn't, if you don't pick up on the phone, it just goes to the answering machine. It doesn't get relayed to the next available person.
So we're almost right.
It's, to me, you know, when somebody's calling the town, they shouldn't really get an answering machine, especially if it's a staffed office.
The phones in my office transfer to each other. With properly registered phones, that's not a problem. With properly numbered and
All right,
you know,
we're not going to resolve this in the aspect, and I think that
well, this all needs to be
falls-
worked on.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the
Well, I
issue.
think that from my point of view, I would hope that the board will agree that the first steps are to get the records into the files. And that's not changing anything that's occurring at this point in time. That's probably the biggest thing that the insurance company is dealing with at this point in time.
It's not. I hate to disagree with you.
Okay.
Just getting the records is not. The organizational factor is what scores the points, not the fact that we just updated previous records. We need to have the organizational thing in place so everything is done from now on out of this building.
Dick, I appreciate you
Yeah,
disagreeing
okay.
with me.
Okay.
But you were saying the same exact thing. You just want to go from it a different way.
Oh.
I want you to go through.
You finish your statement.
I want you to go through the process of fixing it from the ground up, trying to promote from the top down. The thing is, if you can't, in your capacity, get those records here, then the argument about who's in charge is still going to exist. You know, we need to have the policies and procedures so that basically we follow what the rules are. It can't be the whim of the board at this given time. What you presented here is fantastic. It's the model of what we need, but you haven't given me any substance to float a decision on. The only things I can tell you right now is you've told me that we don't have the records that we need to have in-house, and they're not there. I can fix that. I can say, get them here. That's what the board can say if they agree with me. The second part of that is for us to agree on a org chart, it has to be here. It has to be laid out, and you need to talk to your people. And if they feel they're not your people, then we need to talk to the people and figure out what an org chart looks like in this arena. You're telling me by state statute, the plumbing inspector already should be appointed by you. You need appointing.
He is.
He is doing that.
He is.
Yeah. He is.
So,
But you've been appointing the wiring.
well, we've been appointing the plumbing also.
No,
No.
not in the past 2 years.
That's what we did in the past, and that's, I think, by policies and procedures in the town, that they used to come to us to promote. Now, if you've changed that,
Yeah, and the
because-
the
No,
only
this-
one that
this-
we appoint now is the electrical.
The state has mandated that for a long time.
When we hit 5,000 people, that's when that changed.
Yeah.
The requirement for appointing plumbing and gas inspectors became his responsibility.
Okay, so if he's been appointing
And he has
them,
been doing that,
then he
yes.
already has an org chart that explains what he
Just
needs that
for
area.
plumbing.
Just for plumbing
Not
and gas,
electrical.
not for electrical.
Okay, let me ask you a simple question. Is plumbing done?
No.
Is plumbing in here?
No.
No.
So we're talking about something that's probably going to take more than 20 minutes. You're talking about an effort to get them ramped up. So I guess I'm having a hard time understanding why, if you don't bring the plumbing into line and inform the electrical inspector that he has to be in line, what are we looking
Not
for?
my jurisdiction to inform the wiring inspector of anything. The plumbing
Okay.
inspector I can do because it's
Okay,
under my authority.
so you're going to work on the plumbing inspector.
But that doesn't cure this problem. It doesn't cure it from
Yeah.
the organization.
Yes, and. Yes, he will. And.
Yes, I can correct the plumbing.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that,
That's a second. So what you're asking for us to do is to supply a memo to a boss or a memo to the wire inspector to tell him to get his records into the town hall. Is that what you need? Because we
That-
appoint him?
And
that
then-
is only,
And then he needs to report to you.
I'm not going to establish that at this table without some sort of written policy that we understand. Procedure, proposal, thought, because basically report to is something that
Well, if you have to submit, he has to submit the permits to you, right, Dick? I mean, what are you asking for? You're asking for the permits to be brought into the office and
Permits
filed.
need to be brought into the office, and the permits need to be issued out of this office.
So get your policies together for issuing
all
of
of
the
them.
procedures. Yeah.
And
I
if
assume we
and
have
if we get the
policy-
new grant, that's going to be part of the software, right?
Okay.
No?
But that isn't going to happen for months.
Right.
Okay? The window of opportunity here is very, very short, and I cannot fix it with...
Can you describe to me what very, very short is, Dick? Because right now we're beating around a bush and I'm not getting it. I apologize.
This should have been done last fall, okay? We just got this report recently. It basically says we are downgraded some points, okay? We have a window of opportunity to file with them once they set the rating and once we insure our highway garage. That rating's not going to change. Carolyn can probably speak to that more than I do because she used to be in the insurance business.
All right.
I am not an expert in that.
I'm going to ask you one more time.
Yeah.
Little window of time.
2 or 3 months at the most.
Can we put a proposal together and fly it by them to see if it meets? Because, Dick, you're evasive. I know from my heart, I know exactly what you want me to say, but you've given me nothing to nail it down to. And I think back in November we had this conversation, and I asked for a policy procedure or something that outlined what you want that I can act on. Because maybe the other two have a better idea what to say, but I can't. I have no blessing powers. I don't have any magic water. All I have is policies procedures said this is how we do business. Now you're telling me that right now I have the limited powers to appoint a licensed electrical inspector, and that's the only preview that falls underneath the Board of Selectmen, if I understand you correctly. So everything else needs to be fixed in your domain. All I need to do right now, if what I understand correctly, is I need to tell them to bring the records here, the electrical inspectors, and then I have to enact whatever your policy is. As a building commissioner, I have to bless, just like Bear comes in here and says, this is what my proposal is. I need to bless off what your proposal is. If you have it outlined as a thought, we can read it right now and get it, but report how. Right now we've got a system that's set up that says so much of money goes to the town for permits issued from those two groups of people. That's my understanding. It might be only
10%.
one. 10% goes in there. Now, your policy should be, it comes into here, and basically...
This isn't a money issue. This is an organizational issue.
Dick, how do you separate organizational from anything? Without having an understanding of what the organization is responsible to do and who they report to and where it goes, you're just leaving us wide open to make other decisions that are not funded or thought processed by the legitimacy of what you're telling me.
Okay. I guess what you're asking me to do is write up a proposal that this is how things will happen out of the building inspector's office.
Yeah.
With the building inspector, the plumbing inspector, and the wiring inspector.
The whole inspecting process.
Organizational inspection.
If that's
purposes.
what's being mandated by our by our insurance inspectors, then we need to consider it for the simple fact that you've already put out. If we do not do it, we cost everybody in the town extra money. But the reality is, we can chase interpretations until the cows come home, and it's probably why it's where we are right now, is somebody interpreted that said it's okay to have all these records at home. It's not acceptable any longer. But the reality is, we need it established in writing where we're going with it.
Dick, what would you write to ISO to explain, to satisfy them? what would you say in the letter?
I have to submit to them something in the manner in different sections, okay? I have to submit to them a procedure for how permits are issued. I've done that with the building permits, okay?
Okay.
I have to submit a procedure exactly the same because the permits are different for the plumbing inspector, okay? I'm going to have to do that. In the wiring permit thing, same thing. We have to have a procedure that how this is handled, and, that, in other words, you come to this office, you take out the permit, you pay the fee, somebody reviews the permit, they issue the permit, okay? The record is put in the file.
How about you write up the letter as if you were sending it to ISO, and then give it to us for review so that we can endorse that procedure? Because I think, Mark, what you're trying to say is...
it's very simple. He just said exactly what I need. Where's your procedure? And I guess the simple question I have is, since we're going to do this, doesn't all the other towns have this all on one permit? They sign in 4 different locations?
A lot of the towns, you have to go back to the 5,000 town scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those under 5,000, they're haphazard, but they don't have the industrial base in the large buildings, so they don't really get concerned.
You dodged me really well on that one, Dave.
Yeah.
The thought process is...
I was a selectman for a number of years.
Other towns have the organizational situation that I'm trying to explain.
Yeah, and it should be fairly easy to go out and get whatever they got for that organization, so we have something to look at.
But I don't know how they got subjected or whatever they did with this. I mean, this
Doesn't matter, Dick, if it answers your questions or concerns. But go back where Carolyn took us 5 minutes ago. Just write your procedure.
Yeah. Then I'll have it in 2 weeks.
That's all you got to do is write the procedure up.
Then I'll
because
have the-
guess what? At that point in time, it's going to be sitting out here, and everybody that's got any input's going to look at it and say...
Then I'll write the organizational issue. I'll try to contact the people involved.
You send them a copy of it.
Well,
and just
no,
get it
I
done.
will meet with them one-on-one.
That's fine.
To make sure that everybody understands.
Right.
And I will go through these things that need to be corrected, and we will...
Understand one thing. This is what we have to do to meet the requirement of the insurers. This should not be painful or harassment.
No.
In the process. It should
No.
be very, and I meant that more towards you because you're going to be enacting change to other people. If it's programmatic in that, one of us can make ourselves available to sit down and mediate some of the discussion.
No, this is not a problem. This is...
Why are we taking so much time on it then? What is...
It's a change. It's a change from a very long
And,
time process.
and here again, we're
Yeah, but we're making
starting
a
to
lot out of
migrate
it.
back to where I like to be with having a full-time employee overseeing or facilitating part-time employees. So,
Supervisor.
whether he's a supervisor or what, but it's, kind of controlling that office and making sure that everything is organized. So when we do have an audit, they said they do it every 5 years, but I just noticed that it was 11 years from the last one. So they're probably using a funky calendar. But it's important that we make sure that we're facilitating and doing things the right way. Primary objective, as I said from the very beginning, was to make sure the records get back into the town office.
That's the first, from
And,
my point of view, that's the first
as a board of
step we make.
selectmen, we can say, the electrical inspectors, you got to get your stuff here. You can tell the plumbing inspector because he reports to you.
You appointed him.
You appoint him and tell him to get his
And
stuff here.
if you address that finding or that document, if you address it the way you just described, I have a policy for doing this. I still think that I don't see the sense in having 3 separate permits. I mean...
Oh, no, they have to. They have to be by statute.
Explain what you mean. Explain what you mean a little more.
I get permits in many different locations in many different states, and basically a permit has different sections on it that's signed off by all the other people.
Yeah.
And that way you assure that everybody that needs to see that process gets to see that
We
process.
can do a streamlined permitting process. I think
Well, we're going to do that with the
no.
computer aspect, so I don't know
If we get it.
if we get it.
I have to tell you this, and boy,
But it still has to be separate.
I have to say, I'm sorry, you're wrong.
I'm not wrong,
The state issues a specific permit, specifically for the electrical portion, specifically for the plumbing, and specifically for the building inspection. And I will enclose copies of those if necessary, okay?
Dick, I believe you, but
yeah, we can't streamline it.
We can, let me make a difference distinction between what I meant by streamline and what
Yeah.
Mark is saying. We can make it more streamlined, but they are separate permits. It's just that there's a way to
We can
integrate it better. So
Streamline
that
the
we're working
process,
together. Right.
but not the permit. We can streamline the process which they are issued, but not the permit. We can't alter it. It's on the state, boom. It's the way it has to be.
Dick, I can't speak to it. I know I've held it in my hand and had all of them on the
All
same
right,
form.
This
So
is off topic, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
It is. We need to get going.
Trying to get rid of me.
No, I'm not. I don't want to argue about whether we have separate
Okay.
I
permits or
didn't
not.
argue. He made a statement. He disagreed with me, and the fact that I've held one in my hand that does that,
Yeah, I'll put copies
it
in.
may be the size of the town that dictates this thing. He can't tell me that.
Yeah.
So the reality is, I'm sorry that it's not off topic where you want it to be, but the discussion was about the building inspector and his domain, and I don't think we've concluded it. So
No, I meant
No,
separate.
it's not about
permit.
that. It's
Yeah.
about the audit and the requirements to comply with,
This is pushing an issue that you've been talking about for a while.
Yeah.
Up forward, that's all. It brings it to the
Right.
top. The
And
issue of
the-
having all the public records in the town building.
And that should have been resolved with the first part of the comment. The second part of the comment, which is the organizational chart of that, if he doesn't establish the procedures to do it, there's nothing for us to review.
you
I
will
can read
have
the
that.
concept.
You will have that on this desk in 2 weeks at the next selectmen's meeting.
Everything in writing, Dick, everything in writing.
You will have that.
Casey will put it on the agenda for us.
She's not going to be here, so she's copping out on me.
No, I'm not.
You can handle this. You're
Right then.
Okay.
you've got a big boy.
Now that you beat me up enough,
Pete, you're the one that's. I'm the one that's wrong, Dick. You told me I'm wrong many times. I don't see anything
See, my
beat up
wife's
on
going
you.
to be happy because I'm not the one that said you were wrong tonight.
Well, you agreed with him, though.
I just said it was
Thanks.
not. We were getting into the sideline that really.
okay.
It is.
You-
You told me anytime you were wrong to tell you.
And I agree.
So I did.
And I thank you for it.
Okay, I appreciate it.
But when I...
You have other issues?
Do I have another issue?
Other agenda stuff?
If I did, I've forgotten them. I've lost them in this conversation.
you had on there the ISO, you had building commissioner, which I assume were the same
Yes,
subject.
that was the subject. It was the
Subsuming.
ISO audit and changing the building inspector's office because of this audit.
Tobacco control update, does that have anything to do with you?
Control update?
Tobacco control update.
Oh, yes, that's one.
Yes,
Oh,
you're right.
You're right.
Yep.
Thank you, Dave.
Almost, thanks a lot.
Anytime.
We, as you know from the last meeting, we've had trouble. Thursday, I will be attending a tobacco training that involves all the tobacco sting scenario stuff, and I'll report back on that once I complete that on Thursday. So that hopefully will resolve some issues. And the last issue of the issue...
On that one, before you go, if there seems to be an impasse with that discussion, please invite them to
yes,
get on our agenda.
absolutely.
Thank you.
That was the next, I overlooked it, but thank you. Now you corrected me. We're even for tonight.
You weren't wrong. Fishing doesn't make you wrong.
Can I ask for clarification on this? Because I don't know if you're talking about this, but it was my impression, and I think I included this in the minutes, or it will be, that you did vote at a previous meeting to discontinue working with the coalition.
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So we need to send a formal letter out. We were going to have a conversation. Perhaps you did, Dick did.
I did with Casey.
Okay, so just want to make sure about that, and
Then why
then
are we
you'll have a
going?
letter.
Why are we going to this thing? If
The meeting
Go ahead.
is for, excuse me, the meeting is for training, to train specifically. I thought Carolyn was going to, but she can't. I'm going by myself now to get specifically trained in the procedures and processes to do those things and how they're performed. So in the event that we want to continue on, at least I will be updated and know what's going on and know how to do these and be certified to do such.
when is that training?
Thursday.
And how much is it?
It's free. It's 11 o'clock to 2 something or
And
whatever.
where is it?
Amherst.
Can you talk to John Pachurik when he gets back and see if he wants to send an officer with you?
Didn't think of
Oh,
that.
you know what, Mark? That's
Yeah,
a
that's a
really
great
good
idea.
idea.
Does that erase the 2 wrongs that I've had already tonight?
No,
She's counting.
well, stop. That's not true at all.
I will. I thought didn't he come back today? He's back today.
He's back. You should see him tomorrow.
Yeah, he'll be there tomorrow. You know what? That's a really good idea because
not
you
a
know
bad
what?
idea, or send somebody from his office to.
Yeah,
Maybe Adam would go or somebody because Adam does the liquor. It seems like Adam
He does liquor. Don't put that on the TV.
No,
please.
I mean he does the
Enforcement,
underage
compliance.
the compliance check.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe he
That's
would.
what these are.
Maybe
Put a
he-
request into him for us, would you please?
I'll tell him I'm going and tell him you suggested maybe if somebody has availability.
It would be good. It would be good to have
Great
some,
idea.
It would be good to have the consistency of someone like Adam who does the liquor compliance checks. So they come with that mindset to do the tobacco compliance checks. Because let me tell you, we've been having problems, and I think it's just the competence of how they're being done. And maybe if
There's just
we can compare them.
way too many mistakes.
Yeah.
People's jobs are in jeopardy over this.
Yeah, that's what
Employees.
bothers me.
So we need to send a formal letter, I think.
And the last subject, which is one of Carolyn's favorite subjects, we have no information on available information after calling around on medical marijuana regulations for dispensaries, and the state hasn't issued anything. And on Friday, they're awarding licenses, so we are going to be under the gun to figure out what to do about this in the event that a license is issued locally.
My thought, Dick and I went to a meeting on Monday, and this was a regional meeting, and it was just really disappointing that.
Should have stayed home.
Well, no. I mean, we got some new information, but the information, the DPH hierarchy isn't even meeting to discuss their side of it until like March and April. Their time frame. They're talking about organizing it. Now, it's my understanding from that when they issue these licenses on Friday, if one is issued in Deerfield, whoever gets it has 120 days to produce product and have to be on sale. Otherwise, they're not in compliance with the requirements of the license. So if we hold them up, they're going to say it's our fault that they're not, if they don't meet their 120 days. So one of the things that Dick and I had talked about is that if a license is actually given out for the town of Deerfield, that what we would do would call to the other 34 licensees that have been issued and see what those towns are doing and have sort of like some sort of networking of solutions or some draft regulation, and that we are meeting on Wednesday, or we were invited to go to the Deerfield Elementary School budget meeting, so we could just post a meeting afterwards and come up with some discussion of these draft regulations. Mainly would be concerning food manufacturing and indoor air quality kind of issues.
The other part is John Pachurik is on board. John, police officer, is on board with setting the security standards for this, and we've kept him in the loop. But he's had no information given to him either. So,
I mean, it's
we're-
very it's disheartening that it's so unorganized, but
it's going to be tough.
It is what the state of Massachusetts is in the DPH world. I mean, why are you...
well, because we're trying to stay on top of this, Mark, that's all.
But you talked about getting off topic. We're here's looking at tobacco regulations, and we're talking about something we have absolutely no information to actually...
We're just,
we're
just informing you that we're
Well,
no
I think that
information.
everybody in their world has told me that this is going to happen, but they've all come to the same conclusion. They have no idea what it means.
Okay, that's
Well,
that's
we
the
were
bottom
just
line.
announcing-
So the bottom line, so
Summary.
the reality of it is we need to figure out what it is we think is important. And the town of Deerfield is going to be different than anybody else is. We can't actually start doing anything until we know what is the location and what is the proposal.
Mhm.
We have issues that are already mandated by the law as to what security is supposed to be, what the fence rooms are supposed to be, what type of, and we have ideas on what we think is going to be needed because of air quality and food grade thought process. We applied those already in other arenas. The biggest issue we have to deal with right now is the distribution and security of them and what the law is going to look like. We have to be proactive we're Chicken Little right now. If we don't get a license in the town,
Yeah.
it's a dead issue. There's no discussion. The reality of it
That's why
is...
we decided not to
as soon
panic
as-
about it.
We'll know on
It's
Friday.
just say, if we don't get a license, what? We've done as much due diligence and being as proactive as we can to try to find out what our responsibilities are going to be. And because DPH isn't even going to meet till March or April, according to Solo Dennis's boss, then they are not even going to decide what they're going to do and how much they're going to require us to do until that date, so that we can't possibly come up with anything. So
They've got a super plan. They're going to wait until everybody does all the work, and then they're going to capitalize on what they think is the best one and put it into, enact it into law.
what they're doing. It's
It
really
doesn't, and we could send everybody in this staff here in different directions to look at this, and we'd just be spinning wheels. So Friday we'll know, and as you say, we post a meeting, informational meeting for after the budget meeting at the elementary school,
Next Friday.
if we need it, and cancel it out if we don't.
We're talking about what
next
date?
Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
It's April 5th, I think, and it's at 7 o'clock. So we can either post a meeting beforehand or after, depending on your...
I'm out of town next week.
Oh, you're out of
No.
town next week. I'm sorry.
Don't do that to me.
Then I guess
Okay,
we won't,
that being said,
we won't be doing it then.
I would like to almost leave. But before I leave, I'd like to make a parting comment. I'd like to personally thank Ms. Wendy Foxman for the great relationship she's had in the town of Deerfield and how she has been very dedicated, and I've been very pleased to work with her. I would say, while not always agreeing with her, she's been very smooth about controlling me, and you're going to miss her keeping a leash on me. So,
Well, she said she's got long leashes.
I want that to be public knowledge that I really
It's more
respect
like
her.
an electric fence.
I respect her ability, and
I thought it was a shock collar.
So I couldn't think of the word, so I said
well,
that.
it's something. And something she has corrected me on that I can't repeat.
You were wrong? Okay.
I don't know if
I'm in good company then.
I don't know if I was wrong, but she'd advised me to change how I was presenting or doing things. Let's put it that way.
Let me ask you a simple question.
Yes.
Was she the first to ask you to do that? And why did you listen to her and not all the other people that told you?
It was the presentation and
Okay.
her ability to deal with people.
And that's what you're thinking.
And the button on that
And
remote control.
Thanking
I
her
wanna
for
second
that.
That it's been,
I
it's been so
I was
wonderful
hoping to get her blush and embarrass her,
Look at me
which
cry.
I've done a great job of.
Great job.
So
Well.
if I could give her a plaque, I would give one.
I've got it.
We have the same dentist.
We love our dentist.
With that, I bid you good night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Good night, Dick.
See you tomorrow.
Good night, Dick.
Dick, one thing on parting, so we can finish the blushing. I think that everybody in the town has echoed your sentiments on the town offices. The working relationship has been dynamic, and everybody has echoed the same thought process of where it's gone. So
I can
just
tell
wanna
you
make
this.
sure that
She's gone.
All the comments outside of this office and building I've heard from residents in this town have all been positive. So, and I was hoping FEMA wouldn't hire her.
Even on Sugarloaf Extension?
This isn't much of enough of a disaster for me.
Really? You are. You are.
Glutton for
weak,
what?
weak mind.
Well, I just want to say, I actually have had a really good time. Even with the difficulties, it's a challenge and it's interesting. And I'm, as I say, a Muniac. Casey likes that.
Yeah, I like that term.
You know, I'm kind of like small town government, and I've been doing it a long time. And I've actually had a real good time. And I appreciate being able to do whatever I could to help people like Dick accomplish his job, and Casey, and work well with the press and you, and so I've had a good time. I'm tired.
I think there was a lot more work than you anticipated, and I really appreciate you doing so much. Certainly more than you bargained for.
Yes. All right.
What letter? Yeah, we'll get to that.
We need to move into the final things so we can get the approval processes done. Franklin County, the Conservation District Support Letter.
You want to talk about that?
I'm chairing, or have been chairing, Creating Resilient Communities group as in the Deerfield watershed, the 20 communities. Basically, it's organizing the 20 communities up and down the Deerfield River, and working with Windham County Conservation District in Vermont. We're trying to get money to fix what damage has been done by Irene, and this is a letter of support for a grant that we are submitting with the Connecticut River Watershed Group and the Franklin County, the FERCOG. We're all partnering together to put together this proposal to cover the gap. It's basically pre-engineering the upfront cost of assessing pre-engineering projects that we've identified. I've gone to the Fire Chiefs Association, County Association, and worked with the FERCOG on spots that have been identified as perennial areas that always are in events, either microbursts or Irene kind of events that are at issue. So for problems. And so we have a big map that identifies areas, but they aren't prioritized. And of course, nobody has money to do the engineering. And it's millions and millions of dollars. We've estimated it's like $100 million worth of projects in the watershed. So this grant is part of a $100 million pot of money that Fish and Wildlife is putting out for Sandy impacted states. Unfortunately, the Vermont part of the Deerfield watershed is not eligible, but we are eligible, and they want to give money to an inland group. So we have a very good chance of getting this about $750,000 pot of money that will go towards basically hiring Weston Sampson, Dan Lawrence, and John Field from Maine, who have been working in the watershed right along. So this is sort of hopefully tying together 2 years of meetings and Homeland Security support for the highway departments through the GPS each town in Western Mass, the 101 communities, got GPS training and GPS units to capture what's being done in the watershed as far as like work on culverts, maintenance on culverts, conditions of culverts, and other infrastructure. And hopefully this will fit into the FEMA process.
Who's doing the work with GIS? I talked to Ryan this morning, and he didn't give me any indication that he was starting anything or that anything was working in that area.
Oh, this is work that he's already done in the past 2 years. We've used his big map.
Yeah.
We have, and that he put together from the Irene sites that
Yeah.
were identified. Then we added in all the sites that I don't want to say it's just the Fire Chiefs Association, it's highway departments as well, but the fire chiefs are usually the first responders, so they know the sort of the spots that keep reoccurring. They're usually the EMDs. So we just sat down with people in each town and tried to figure out each town what spots were the areas that were causing them trouble. For example, like our area, we around the bend by Savages is about, we had it surveyed, the Conservation District surveyed it, is about 16 feet below pre-Irene. So that is an area that we've identified, that riparian buffer has been basically trashed. So that's an area that we've identified in our town as an area that needs to have some work done because it's about 16 feet below where it was normally, so any kind of event that comes would cause damage sooner because it's 16 feet lower than it was before Irene.
Do you remember what my question was?
On that Ryan doesn't know that he's doing?
He didn't have an idea that he was going to be active. My concern is that the GPS components of these things have so much value in the process, and I thought that if he was engaged in something of this nature, especially with culverts and infrastructure, that there would be something that would be an overlay that would be very useful to the highway department that would be built out from that thought process. And when I asked him about that type of stuff, he just looked at me with a blank stare. So he's looking for people to actually put those GIS units into to function to build that maps.
I don't know. I mean, it's Kimberly McPhee and Bob Dean and Tracy Rogers from the FERCOG are involved in this. I mean, they were at the meeting Wednesday. Yeah. Was it Wednesday? Last Wednesday. I don't know how they plan to involve Ryan, truthfully. I mean, I know the basis of our work for the last 2 years has been on Ryan's work. I don't know I don't think that the FERCOG is including him in the future work. I mean, other than giving him information so that he can keep archiving it, because he is archiving work as the Conservation District is, because Debbie Schreiber has the GIS capacity as well. So every time we get information on a site, that goes into the map, and then the map is updated. And we've been updating the map for about 2 years. So it's actually, I mean, UMass Climate Change's group is using that as basis for their work. And they've gotten a few $1 million grants for their work, which is sort of dovetails into this too. But this is an actual gap for the towns that covers the whole assessment and engineering stuff that we just can't do, or we don't have the money for, or that's the upfront, that's the 40% match on projects or the 25% match on projects. This would
so it
cover,
can be used for the match?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is covers that pre-work that we as towns would have to upfront to get access to, like FEMA mitigation money.
Okay.
So that's why I'm hoping that we would write a letter of support for this grant.
But you have a letter.
Yeah, but I need to make a motion for you to be authorized to send a letter of support on our letterhead.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll make a motion.
I
They send a letter because I'm signing the Conservation District's letter of support, so I was hoping that you would sign it, so it's not like two letters coming from me. You know, as I don't want to be associated with the second letter.
It's only one signature rather than the full board.
Yes, I didn't want the full board. I'm sorry, Dave, I didn't want to cut you out.
That's fine.
We're putting a packet together. Homeland Security has written the letter of support.
Can we just
stuff
go
like that.
with
Okay.
your motion?
Okay. I'm
Make a
asking
motion for the chair to
to
sign
a letter
for
of
the board
support
for
for
the
this
board.
Fish and Wildlife grant that is being sponsored through the Hurricane Sandy Fund money.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Is this actually a branch of FERCog or no? No, nothing to do with it.
No,
Okay.
Franklin Conservation District is totally separate.
Okay.
It's set up during the 1940s for the
All those in favor?
soil erosion.
Aye.
Aye.
Good, since I signed it.
There's an envelope.
Thank you. Hopefully, it will pay off.
Got a couple of minutes, literally minutes.
Do we have, yeah, let's go from that. Everybody look at the proposed meetings and have any problems or issues with them?
Nope.
Now, the 5th is Wednesday, right?
Yes, I
And
didn't
that budget
realize-
meeting is the school budget meeting? Deerfield?
Yes, and it's at Deerfield Elementary.
Right.
I didn't realize, I was thinking it was, you were out of town the next week of the month. I didn't realize it was the first month.
We have a meeting the next week.
Yep. So, I mean, we'll just, if we get a license, we'll circulate stuff and we'll try to figure out a time.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other
The
issues?
letter that we had supposedly drafted to say that we wanted the budgets to stay within about 2%, was that sent to the different elementaries?
That went out with the budget sheets are separate.
The budget sheets they do their own budget preparation, they don't follow our sheets.
Would you?
I know they don't follow it.
We
but
asked
there
for
was
a letter to go to both the heads to make sure that they understand that we are requesting that in our budget
Okay.
arena and ask them to comply with it, to the schools.
Right.
And I'm going to kind of carry that forward. We've got some pretty hefty budget changes coming from FERCog and everything else, so I want an explanation as to why. And I think that so far I don't have anything in writing, but what I'm hearing is probably good practice for us at this point.
Would you like them to come to your meeting?
Well, I'd like to be prepared.
Have the information.
I'd like to have the information, and I'd like to be able to make sure that we look at it honestly as to its value added to the town. Because I feel that the Board of Selectmen should be held to the same accountability in anything we're doing in writing, showing that basically if we're above and beyond, we have to give that explanation. So Dick went to the budget process hearing, so I'll get with him and find out how to put together some sort of narrative so we can get it as part of the budget process. Anything else we're doing in that aspect of budgets? We want to make sure that we're
That
addressing it.
information that he brought back from that meeting is in the budget book right now. We're still compiling when we receive things.
Right.
We're compiling it into the budget. I talked to Skip.
But if we're the way we're going to attack this year, from what I understand, is the board will be presenting the budget, so we can give the information to them, to the finance committee as we're getting it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not going to act until we actually submit to them a comprehensive thought process.
Okay.
So if budgets are out for 2% or they're not in line, or we see that there's something where it's creeped up and we have to address it, then they're looking for our recommendations in those changes. They need to have the information because they have to determine whether we can afford it or not. So they can be looking at it so their argument can be as to whether or not financially it makes sense to do it, but that's what they're looking for. And since that's their request, I'd like to honor their request that they...
While we're talking about meetings, we had talked about meeting as, South County here to see what other projects we could regionalize over, this past weekend. So maybe we could request that Casey circulate potential dates in mid-February.
I thought David was going to do that. David from Sunderland. Thought he was going to do some sort of initiate on that. So let's just have you check with Margaret and Lynn and let's find out if the boards of selectmen actually did follow through with the thought process.
Okay.
And let them, the three of you, decide how to. If David's not doing it, the three of you should get together and figure out what works good. He was talking about some sort of doodle thing.
Oh yeah, doodle poll.
Doodle poll or something.
So when you're available.
You're available.
So he had some thought process, but if he doesn't follow through, I think it's important that we do.
When you mentioned, I think it was Carolyn mentioned to me that you had at the MMA annual meeting talked with the other two town boards about other opportunities to work together. We talked a little bit about. We are waiting to hear back from the COG about the district local technical assistance, where we did put as a priority looking at sharing HR and opportunities for that.
Right.
So that is, I don't know what their timetable is for getting back to the towns on that.
Well, we had the shared HR, but we were also, I noticed in your interim report, you were talking about the green communities. That was one of the things, a green communities coordinator for the three towns, because that was a huge onus of work.
Well, that grant is due on the 14th, and so I haven't heard a word from COG, and I sent an email today, and I complained to me, but I said, what's going on? I haven't heard a word. Are you writing this grant for us? Because that's what they had said they would be, who was interested, but then I didn't hear follow-up. So hopefully shortly we will know.
Okay.
So that's the technical grant for regionalization?
No, that's just specific for there's grant money available for shared energy manager. Okay. And the energy committee, gung-ho, all of the town administrators who have to do green community stuff it's like, please.
Okay.
Give us a person.
Yeah, or give us the opportunity to get a person under grant funding to do the green communities work and other energy work as well. So, yeah, hopefully I'll have a response tomorrow.
Okay. Do we have a warrant tonight?
No, it's not complete yet. Brenda was working on it till about 5.
Okay.
And I don't have the signature pages, so.
We'll vote to sign it at our leisure.
Do you want us? Can we just do that, or do we have to make an actual vote?
She's looking for a vote now on that, so.
I make a motion that we sign the warrant at our earliest convenience.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Questions? You're good with that? All those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't know that it wasn't ready until later. I'm sorry.
That's okay, but we still need to sign it, keeping up with where we're going at this point.
On a segueing related topic, one of the meetings that's coming up is this training session that FERCOG puts on, those Select Board Essentials. And I believe both Casey and Brenda, our relatively new town accountant, are going to be attending this one on Show Me the Money, Financial Skills for Select Boards. And Rick Kingsley, who's the Director of Department of Revenue's Division of Local Services, is doing the presentation. And it'll be the whole walkthrough through the whole budget cycle. It should be a very good and useful presentation. So,
is that
really July 19th?
No, it's actually February 19th.
I told you I'm
tired.
later.
Okay.
It's February.
You know what?
So that's a Wednesday, right?
You mean Cheryl? This is Cheryl Sabaris?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you give this back to Dick, because Dick is actually going to
see her.
the tobacco training on
Okay,
Thursday
great.
that I can't attend, and Cheryl should be there.
I emailed her. I didn't.
I don't know.
She never.
I know.
Okay.
It's okay. But Dick, people will be there that, Boston people will be there that we can get it back to her.
So he doesn't want it.
Well, she'll bring it back if you
I'm
can.
cleaning. That's why I can't.
I know. Well, I just didn't want it. I didn't want to take it home and get lost at my house.
Yeah, just throw it in front seat of my car or get
no,
lost.
I know. I have piles, but that.
All right, let's move on.
We just have some minutes left, I think, and then we can do executive session.
I can quickly run through my report if you want, or you can just read it
I think,
and do the minutes.
do you want to hit the highlights? Things that you think are,
All highlights.
then go for it.
No, okay.
I think it's important enough that we do it.
Cemeteries restoration, you know about already.
Yep.
Senior school, grammar school, senior center building, we read about in the newspaper. So you need to, we're waiting, we should know by March, get the final information on the historic significance of the building and the structural, though we have a preliminary that it's in good shape. Oxford property, we are waiting to see whether we hear from anyone. I haven't heard anything, and neither has, as of our last communication, the Economic Development Council. We did have people here for a
Show and
bidders
tell.
conference, but on Friday the 31st, this Friday at 4, they're due. So we will know whether we have any interest at this point in time.
Very good.
Green communities, we were just talking about that. But very specifically, we're looking at moving the Windows money that we couldn't use because of the cost. There were other issues by putting up pole-mounted solar collection at the treatment plant, and because of the site and all of that, there are a bunch of land use permitting issues involved, so it's slowed down a little bit, but the office is hard at work. I mean, it's in a floodplain, it's right near the river, there were issues.
The sewer, the dump cap location?
No, sorry. This is at the treatment plant.
Old Deerfield.
Old Deerfield treatment plant. So there.
What's the matter with the cap?
That may be pursued, but that's on hold for a little while.
Who's in charge? Who's our point person on that?
On
Solar.
Well,
Energy Resources has been heading up those efforts. Kristen Backer and M.A. Swedlin.
Okay. And I've been working with them, and I've been in touch with Beth. Forgetting her name right now. Greenblatt. Close. Who is, the go-to person on all this stuff. She's the one who said, don't go forward at a certain point because we had gone too long, and the SRECs, the credits were missing. I don't know if you picked up anything at the MMA conference, but I understand that they're up again, but there are other issues. I don't know if we want to wait with the monitoring stuff.
I would push it forward because basically with the scoring process, if we can get it in now, we get a better
You want to talk
rate.
Talk to MA and Kirsten, saying the board would like to move forward if that's...
If at all possible.
Yeah.
They have more information than I do, but the course or the class that I attended said that they're all moving forward and they're spending a lot of money and they're going to start capping things because they basically hit 400% what their goal was.
Right.
And now they're looking more for what we're doing. So I'd like to make sure ours is at least shovel ready to proceed.
You mean solar on the
landfill?
Wherever we can get it. We got the
wherever.
landfill. We have the.
Dave had a part. He was asking about another spot.
The Rewa property on the end of North Main Street.
The railroad property?
Yeah.
But at the MMA, we also talked to a couple vendors that had street lighting options and stuff that looked
individual lows.
Solar powered.
Solar, plus they also had motion detection for LED streetlights, and so once they're supposed to send the information to the town.
Okay.
Once we get that, we can forward to MA and that group. And because some of it, they said it would be no cost to the town for implementation.
Did you get them to sign something?
Huh?
Well,
No.
they're looking for a payback.
Yeah.
so.
Right. Employee evaluations, we talked about this at your last meeting. It took us a while to find the forms because you wanted to change back from the performance appraisal documents that Jacob's study, and which were in use last round of evaluations that were done. So we've got them now, the exempt and non-exempt performance appraisal documents. We just have to determine, clearly the department heads can do their employees, but what you want to do about performance appraisal with the department heads.
So I'd like to address that, and I'd like to go back. I thought it was our understanding that the performance appraisal process would be at the discretion of the department head, which system they used, one or the other. Is that not the way we left that?
I thought you wanted to, we consistently, the personnel board recommended, and I thought you did at your last meeting, that to go back to the form, the pre-Jacob study form. And that's what we've got. So they need to be consistent, really, among the departments. And
I don't remember
that's,
that.
that's what the personnel board also recommended to you. So
I think we endorsed that in recommendation, I'm pretty sure.
That's fine with me.
Yep.
That's not the way I understood it, but as long as we're moving forward, I don't, as I said, I didn't care which one they used. I don't care how they do it, what rating system they put together, as long as it's consistent across all the employees the same. You know, if a department head has, you know, like Sean's.
That's the one.
Sean's using that particular one, but it may not be the same for the brain trust that you've got in another department. It's because it's a mark and score system. So however they do it, we can check and adjust. The important thing to me was get them started, get the midterm ones done so that we know what's going on. Second part of your question was department heads. I would like to, and the people I talked to at most of the places at the MMA conference, they have what we had in place quite a while ago, which was a liaison process. Thoroughly understanding that a liaison is not a reporting person. It's a communications link to each of the departments. So I would recommend that we reinstitute that thought and have that person responsible for the initial performance appraisal of the department head, and that person forwards an appraisal to the other two boards of selectmen to review, and we will feed back to that individual what the performance appraisal would look like. And it would be that person's responsibility to formalize it with recommendations from the board and give it to the department head. Anybody have any comments or concerns or discussion on that?
I'm fine.
I'm fine too.
So now we need to belly up to the bar and pick the department heads that we'll be reporting to, who as liaisons.
Well, I think we need to identify them. When were these appraisals supposed to be done?
They're supposed to be done next Friday, but I don't think that's realistic.
No.
I think that probably...
Well, the department's heads can do their people, but,
Right.
you know, between now and next Friday, I do not believe that we can do that.
So the 15th?
Yeah.
It's not going to go anywhere if we don't do it.
No, but I meant,
And
I
if
think
we wait much longer, we're going to be
No, but I
almost
think
to
if
the
we give
final.
2 weeks. I
the
think
calendar under there, if you want to look, just to get it.
2 weeks is okay. We can probably get it done.
The 15th give us 3 weeks.
All right, well, 3 weeks then.
But the reality is it has to be done, which means it should be done by the 8th so that you can get it to the other two, so that we can get it to the other board of selectmen meeting to actually review and see if they agree with the evaluation assessment of the department heads.
What about employees? Do we want the same due date for employees?
Yes.
It should be.
Yes. The one thing that's going to be hard is that basically the appraisal of a department head should dive into its performance of the appraisal process for its department. So that's a big chunk of what our department heads are here about, is how they manage the assets that are assigned to them. To do an appraisal of them without looking at the performance appraisals that they did on their employees is missing one of the key attributes of what is a department head. So this one will be by the seat of our pants in reality, but it's still, I feel that it's important that it get done.
So
If anybody has any input to that, I'd be glad to hear it.
I don't know when you're going to divide up the list, and you should all each have a copy of the most recent, the current job description for each of them.
Right. So, I guess the question is, how do we divide it up?
Yeah.
We have to identify all the people we have to get done. And then you can pick, I guess.
I think that we can pick the heavy hitters right now, and between Wendy and Casey, we can send us a list of who's missed, and we can caucus it out.
We have Barb. We have Brenda, the accountant, right?
Yep.
We have Sue.
Well, the account's actually under the administrator, but
Oh, yeah.
but
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Because I
It
did
is the
Janet's. I did
organization.
Janet Swims before.
Right.
I didn't realize that.
It didn't. It has fallen that way because we haven't done our job. But when we did it before, we split it up as functional areas. And since she didn't report to anybody in the chain, you did Janet at that point. And Janet's kind of hard to measure because she was the measure. It would be a hard one to follow up.
So there's Barb, Brenda, and Sue Antonellis, the Recreation Department.
I thought they
Highway.
did their own evaluation of her.
We decided that wasn't. She has to be supervised by somebody.
She was supposed to have been done by Bernie. She fell under the same staff as Bernie.
I can't remember if he did her evaluation. I can check, though.
I think that probably Karen fell under
assessors and
Assessors.
and the
assessors,
like.
but basically it fell underneath as a full-time employee under Bernie, under the administrator. He would just get the documentation and put out by the assessors, so it was in the personnel file.
Library director is the trustees.
Mm-hmm.
Sean at the Highway Department.
Mm-hmm. Dick,
Police chief.
Dick,
John.
and John. Oh, and the town administrator.
Administrator, which
Well,
that one's not going to be an issue at this point. So
she squirms away.
whoever is
Yeah.
going to do the town administrator function,
Senior center is under Lynn, correct?
senior center is under.
Board of
Lynn Sibley.
the oversight. She's supervised over.
If they do a performance appraisal on her, fine. If she doesn't, then
They
we
sh-
have to do one. So get with
believe
Lynn
Lynn
and find
does.
out if she does one,
Matt.
and Matt, for a short period of time.
Well,
So,
then you should think about whether you want to do that or not.
well, I think that it's
If he's
important
leaving-
for it
if-
to be done.
You know, if
If it's a moot point.
it may be.
We're still going to be evaluating a director. Instead, it will be the towns collectively looking at a director for a performance
Well, the
appraisal.
Board of Oversight will.
Right.
The Board of Oversight, yeah.
But it's the three towns, and they're still going to, if we're going to have our HR process cover these people, we have to treat them all equally.
Right, but I would say Matt at this time, I wouldn't, it doesn't,
Right.
unless he wants that for some reason. would like an evaluation. Sometimes people.
Well, I'd like to have Matt, and I'd like to have the valuations of our 3 employees, because they're a fairly substantial investment in processes over there. They're still our employees. And when the director comes in, he'll be responsible for doing something very similar to live within our bylaws.
So he'll do his reviews.
Yeah.
So start at the top. Who's first?
Electrical and the wire.
Who's first?
Police chief,
I'll take that one.
highway.
Well, I have been doing that one.
Mm-hmm.
Just
You're
keep it.
the most involved in it at this point.
Now, can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is this really, you're saying that this is like a midterm?
Yes.
So this is really setting goals and reviewing with them? It's not really a ranking and a rating of how their performance as much as a...
No, this is a midterm
Check
sit down,
in.
just check how you're doing with it. But it's actually setting the goals, because they haven't
Right.
been set.
Okay.
So you should be talking to these people and getting a good sense of...
Well, the next 2 people are the brand-new people, the collector,
Right.
treasurer, and the...
But they have to understand
and the
it.
accountant.
Yeah, they still have to understand the process, and Brenda needs to get involved in the
Right,
process.
that's all what I was
So it's
asking.
good dialogue.
So clerk, treasurer, collector?
Mhm. Would you be interested in doing that, Dave?
Huh?
Would you be interested in doing that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Accountant?
She's the only one that's been, well, shorter than the accountant, the only 2 have been in the job shorter time than me.
I think that basically it would be good for David to do that whole...
Both of those?
Both of those. And that way he gets an idea how the system works, and if we need to check and adjust. The biggest thing out of this is being able to set what goals are, what we think they are, and to be able to go into the final one to determine whether or not we understand what the goals are for each of the persons, but set the goals for the following year for where they're going to go, because at that period, which is only going to be a month away or month and a half away, because we're looking at what are we going to pay these guys.
Right.
So we already have to have a decision made pretty much in March, end of March, what we think everybody's doing and how they're performing. And at that same time should be the opportunity for us to tell them what we expect in the up and coming year.
Recreation director or not? Yes?
Yes.
I'll do that one.
And Board of Health Building Inspector?
I'll do that one.
Can you be objective?
I don't think she can, but that's okay. She's got to send it all by all of us.
I just had Matt, but I
So how many have we got? What's the division of labor look like? I've got
You've
one.
got one.
David's got 3.
You got a handful, though.
With the one? I don't think
Yeah.
so. That's got to be one of the easier ones.
You got Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny.
John.
Carolyn's got 2, Dave's got 3, but, relatively in terms of size of department and levels of responsibility, it kind of comes out.
Do you want Matt, Mark?
Well, Matt's,
I think I need to do Matt and Casey.
Yeah, if Mark does Matt and Casey, then that evens out.
Well,
you have
it's, it's
senior center is no,
Yeah, Linda's
libraries
no.
no, assessors are no, so.
well, I think that we need to send to the governing bodies of the assessors, the
They should do
library,
this.
the
I was
everything
just gonna
else.
say they need to
And
have
you
it.
need to send them the package of this is how you do it. If you have any concerns or questions, please get back to us. We need to send a memo to each of the department heads, letting them know that we're going to be doing this and that they should be looking at the performance appraisal process that they're doing on their employees for how it applies to them.
Right.
They should have the smartest thing they can do right now is take that document, assess themselves,
Exactly.
and fill out that form. And then when we come together, we're looking at the interpretations of both of them, and we can come to some common ground as to what it is. my company is more about making the employee do all of the work to fill out the forms, and do everything and report out, and all the manager does is determine whether or not you're going in the right direction. I think we should be doing the same thing, but by doing the forms at the same time simultaneously is you're learning about who's reporting out to you, and it's a very good exercise in understanding, and we're at the stage now where we need to understand.
Right. And it would be, I think, very valuable. I think the employees will appreciate your reimmersion and getting to know what they're doing. And also that will be helpful to the new town administrator to learn from your perspective on the departments, as well as from the department heads as well.
Right. If we do this right, it'd be almost invaluable for telling us what the town administrator, the new administrative function really needs to look like, and how's it described, because it's not for everybody. It's it's a thing you have to learn and go through. So I think a letter to email to them, or response that says that basically during this meeting it was discussed. Recommendations are, and it's a goal-setting exercise.
Yeah, it'll be
goal-setting exercise.
I think it'll be in a letter attached with the document.
Yep.
And with a whole bunch of others for many as they need for their department to do their own reviews of their staff. So.
And I would make sure that any concerns, comments, or disgruntledness or anything that is addressed quickly and effectively, let them have a feedback system, so that basically we resolve any concerns or anxieties. Or the big thing is, this is not to create stress and anxiety at these people. It's
a goal-setting process.
It's a goal-setting process, but if we're getting feedback that it's negative, we need to get it fast and address it quickly. So I need to make sure they know that feedback is welcome, and that we'll address it. I don't want this to linger out.
And we'll have their job descriptions to work from?
Yes.
With
That's
the
what
form.
they should be looking at their job description, because
Right.
I think after we do this one time, you'll find some tweaking of the job descriptions along with the performance appraisal process. This is not set in stone by any stretches of imagination. This is a learning curve that should have happened 9 or 10 years ago, but it's been very slow coming.
All right. So that was in my report, and the next thing I had was the town administrator screening committee. They met once. I forget when they're meeting again. I don't know if they have a meeting. They're waiting till February 10th is the deadline for applications, and Pat Kroll is the staff person in terms of clerical work. Joanne is actually having anything that comes in get sent out, and she's made sure she's running it like she ran the last process. She's given everyone a ream of paper, or we've given everyone a ream, so they can print out the information from the email and review it themselves, and then come back and forward to the meetings. So, the rest we talked about. I'm sorry.
She already do that?
What?
Give out the ream of paper?
Yeah.
Oh, I got a case of gray paper. You give them all gray paper?
I'll take it. It's a pile over there. I think the rest of the stuff we've already covered. Medical marijuana, we'll hear soon whether we're in or out, or up or down. The community incentive grants, we're waiting to hear, second week of February. They did call. I had some questions about the EMS grant. I did say that we put in a nice chunk of money for admin and related costs, and I think we are going to need it because. So I mentioned that to him, that I said that we may be exceeding the need as the fiscal agent, and he heard that. Casey participated in the call as well, and I also put in a plug for the online permitting, how important that was to us as well. I also found out we're in other grants that we were in previous years. This tick-borne illnesses statewide grant, we're in a DA's crime prevent. It's a public safety grant that the police chief signed an MOU,
Right.
but the COG on our behalf, I guess, signed a. So there were other things, and also the dog. We're still, because we use the shelter, we're still in a grant that was resubmitted.
Which,
The animal control officer, the animal control program.
and that's with Greenfield, and Greenfield's.
No, this is because we use the shelter, we're in it sort of in a small way. We're partly in that program.
It's not the animal control part, because we have that separate agreement with Montague and Greenfield. It's
Okay.
just the drop off the dog,
The kennel.
kenneling,
Okay.
and then the adoption part, or the pickup part, whatever works out.
We had been in it, and I think they've submitted for another grant, so.
They're going to need some help because it looks like they're going to be uprooted. So,
I think that's part of the new grant. It was a new location. I mean, because I don't know, there was calls being made where, do you have a place to put a kennel? And so they were kind of trying to sort out a new central location.
can we have them redo the basement of the senior center? Temporary housing, just long enough to get rid of all the stuff that's down there.
I just want to say that Casey's been doing an amazing job pulling the budget together, using the forms that are Excel formula forms. It's complicated, just lots of work, and pretty amazing that we're behind schedule, but amazingly catching up because of the work that you're putting in. So
It's been helping a great deal.
thank you.
Thank you, because we really need to sit down.
Yeah, the budget's.
We found out that pretty much we can look forward to about the same amount of local aid next year. I mean, we were promised
More, but
7% more by DeLeo, but you know what?
You're going to hash it out.
well, 7% is based upon what they gave us last year, but 4% of it is already promised to things we can't control. So you're getting a 1.5. They're giving us 1% if you take the 2.5% growth that you're already going to plug in top of it. So you get your proposition 2.5. They're going to give us the 4% they've already promised in commitments. So our net increase is 1%, 1.1%.
But they have to figure out how to pay for it. So if they give us less for regional busing and cut it here and cut it there, what you get in the bottom line is what
Yeah, the
you should
bottom
be
line
really
is-
looking at. And I
we
have
won't-
to
you
say
won't-
it will be about the same.
Yeah, as I said,
If we're lucky,
at the
it'll be about
best
the same.
outcome, it's 1%.
Is that what the MMA was saying?
Well, no, that we were reading between the lines.
The MMA was saying 4.9%,
Yeah.
which
Local aid increase, but
Which equates to about 1.2 because the
numbers.
all the
are-
earmarks said.
yeah.
So they're saying pretty much the same thing. They're just delivering it on a different platter.
Everybody was trying to
Well-
put a better spin on it, but when you really delve down into what is your bottom line, the bottom line looks pretty much the same.
The same.
If we're lucky, and that's what we're hoping for, is that we at least get the same amount of money, and that's what we should base our budget on, is the
Right.
same amount of
Right.
money.
And if we get more, then
And if we get more, then
It's
great.
a bonus.
it's a
Yeah.
bonus.
I think education's going to go up. That's just my
Oh,
prediction.
they promised at least $25 a student more. But the thing is, when they give money to, they promise to fund to the foundation budget. We are always over the foundation budget.
So we're not getting
and
anything.
And the way the formula works, those huge amounts of increases goes to
Round
other
up,
communities
right.
besides our profile communities. So we'll get at least $25 more a student. If we get more, that would be great. But I wouldn't really count on too much
Tiny.
more. I know. That was the bottom line. The promise was at least $25 a student more. So we'll see.
Nod your head, it's fine. Your minutes.
'Cause we won't
I
know
worked very
until-
hard to do that 5-hour meeting, so I really hope you look at those minutes in my presence.
The only thing
I'm happy to take any input you want to give me.
The only thing, I thought I was endorsing the status quo, but both you and the newspaper said that Mark and I were supporting a less administrative authority than currently exists. But, I mean, so maybe it came across as I was...
You can want to...
I think Dave was interested in a stronger one. Mark was looking for a slightly different description of chief procurement officer that exists, that interpretation anyway. And I was endorsing the status quo, I think. But
okay,
it doesn't matter. It's not, honestly, it was after 5 hours, who knows? And,
there wasn't an actual decision on it, so it's not.
Yeah. Well, we sort of, I thought we had consensus.
Yeah.
We agreed.
Well,
we agreed.
Job description, but.
Yeah.
So, whatever.
Yeah.
I just assume instead of.
Looks really good to me.
Yeah, just leave it.
Fantastic. I do appreciate all the hard work.
I know.
To go through that process. But I think you could.
I was like, maybe I need to articulate myself in a different way because the newspaper said that you and I were agreeing, and
you weren't in agreement.
And we weren't in agreement, but that's okay. Whatever.
That's what makes it really functional.
So do you want a motion? I make a motion that we accept the minutes of January 4th, 2014 as presented. It's fine.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Take the draft off.
Make that unanimous, please.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes of January 15th, 2014 as presented.
They're hot off the press. I noticed a few things I would like to...
It's a draft.
Yeah.
We'll put it on the next meeting.
Okay, we can put it on as a draft.
But if you would read it and make any corrections. The one thing, there's a reference to FEMA, it's the hazardous mitigation plan. Oh, Mark, do you want to do an update on the
Yeah, I
hazardous
was going to ask.
plan?
Oh.
Because I know you had a meeting.
Do you?
I do.
Yeah. We finished the updates to the proposal, and it will be sent to MEMA at the same time as it's sent to us, probably in the next...
You had a meeting?
Yeah, he did that today.
He did that today.
Wow. That's really great.
So
I didn't
Is
even
that
know.
what you wanted me to do, isn't it?
No, but I thought I was going to have to.
her.
I know, but I thought I was going to have to be here.
Why would you have to be here?
Because
I met with Kimberly and they worked through that.
I
I
can't
just set
believe
up a meeting, and everything was pretty simplistic. The only thing that I changed in it was
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I can't believe it.
I moved flooding up to a high priority, and I moved hurricanes, because of hurricanes as a whole, to a medium. So I just moved everything, and flooding and associated stuff went to a higher level.
Did I miss something on why? I don't understand why we didn't have that.
Why it didn't happen?
Yeah, because I was in the meetings with you. It seemed like we answered the questions.
The only thing that I think, it went out as a proposal, weak proposal. Some of the stuff hadn't been done or finished up yet. But I think the part that killed them is they changed the format, and they tried to figure out how to make the format fit. They needed to rate everything instead of, we had put them in categories. They actually, instead of just saying high, medium, or low, they had to have a rating system.
We should be in, okay, I need to call McGovern's office to follow up on this so that his office can follow up. So it went out to FEMA today?
No. We finished it today. She'll do the modifications, the changes that were made to comply with everything that they wanted. But the actual problem they had, which is the rating system, has been corrected and is ready. As soon as she does the update, which should be within the next 2 days, she's going to send it out and send us a copy at the exact same time. I would wait to make.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would wait till you get it in hand before you make any phone calls.
Okay, then that's what I'll do.
And if we don't have it by Friday, I'll make a phone call.
Okay. All right, thanks. We might have a chance to do something this construction year.
I also tried to...
Thank you so much, Mark, because it's like $800,000, it's $790-something thousand sitting there for us.
I got the message.
Thank you.
And
I know, but that's so nice. I appreciate it.
I guess he told me, and I said, have you told Carolyn? Have you told Carolyn?
I know, I'm really excited because this money has been sitting there and it's been awarded to us and they just can't release it.
Supposedly there were quite a bit of butt chewing that went on.
Yes.
So it was a very enjoyable meeting from my perspective. It was very profitable. I think I could ask for a tap dance. I think they would have done just about it. So whoever did the initial prep work made it very easy for me to
Did you make a phone call
job.
before?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, well, you were very disappointed, and
I have been extremely
made sure
disappointed,
that
so thank
because you were the point person on the aspect of it, but I knew that we could get it done, and I got it done. So, the second part of that was I asked MEMA to come back to actually go back and look at Irene's mitigations and see if we can put the water usages for Belnick's Farm into the request for a reimbursement.
Okay. I think that's a good idea. I mean, based on our testing, I would say
If
that we
we're-
have
when we
certainly
get done with the
enough
testing, we should be able to prove that it's
was related to
probably
the
more
storm
came from
related.
storm related than anything else.
Wow, that's a good,
So
that's a wicked good
they should
idea.
get back to me in the next
I can't
couple of
believe
days.
I hadn't thought of that. I'm always trying to connive extra money.
Well, this one was an honest process to make
I
them.
know. Well, Mark,
So it
thank
came out of
you.
the mitigation
I am
prop-
really excited.
so-
I am really excited. Thank you so much.
We do have,
All you do is ask.
I know, but I can't believe you. That was so fast turnaround. I mean, I just asked you to do it, and it got done, and you did it really fast. Oh, we have to go into the executive board.
Yep.
I make a motion. Oh, thank you.
Do you have the right one?
Oh.
She put down
the reason.
contract negotiation. It should be on the back top one.
Also, can I just say one more thing? I have this, I don't know what to do with it, but the Franklin County Sustainability Plan is out, and I asked for a copy of, CD, really. Apparently maps are upside down and things like Pat was pointing out in here. But at any rate, it will be in the office unless you want it to be elsewhere.
The only thing I was going to check
we
is
put it on
I actually
can we put a link?
had a complaint that the build out was in some of the floodplain and on APR land, and I mean, I just don't know how I'm
we'll
going to have
amend it.
time
Don't
to
worry
look
about
at
it.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, can we get a, there is a CD on the back of that, right?
That's what it says.
Yep, there is. I saw it when you flipped
Oh,
through it.
yeah.
Can we get that link to our website?
I think so.
Oh, good.
If
And then
if
you
we
know
can
what?
pull it off.
Somehow we can change it. I just don't want to take that home and be responsible for reading it.
Right.
And
But
getting
if
it
we
back
get it
in
on
the
there,
list.
you can make a favorite to it and go in and read it at your leisure off the computer.
I don't
Yeah.
know, is that the final? It looks like a final, I don't know if there's
Looks
a
a
draft
lot
to
like a
begin
final
with.
to me, so.
I know. Well, I mean, I did have complaints on it, and yeah. I will check it, but I just didn't want to, I have so much I have to go through in the next month. I just didn't think I can get to it. So where am I supposed to, I make a motion, we go into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparing for negotiations with non-union personnel, which is reason.
Well, you don't have to say the reason number, but you just have to follow that process. Mark knows.
Okay.
You got to do the roll call vote and
Yeah.
all of that, and say whether you're going back into open session.
So,
We would not go back into open session, right? No.
Well, if you make a decision there that needs to be made, if you
Public.
discuss something, like,
Okay.
there's a possibility you will go back into.
All right. So we are going back into.
yes.
Okay. So I vote yes. Oh, no.
I'll second the motion to go into executive session for the purpose of negotiations. I will have a roll call vote for all those in favor. Carolyn?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Mark, yes. At the when we convene the executive session, we'll be re-adjourning here to discuss any discussionable items, and we will close out from that meeting afterwards.
Do you want to go into the other room, or do you
Yes.
want to?
Yeah.
I think we should. It's a little bit warmer probably, too.
Yes.
It might be.
So 719 was the, this FERCog. I just want to make